I exchanged the spring and autumn cicada of the school flower with the Hongyun Chitian gu, but when the teachers and students saw it, they all scolded me for being crazy. You see, the Hongyun Chitian gu can fill the host's luck value to the maximum, making everything come true without any effort. Although the spring and autumn cicada have the ability to reverse time and travel to the past to change the future, this ability can only be triggered once after death. However, no one in this world has ever seen Great Love Immortal, so no one knows the true function of the spring and autumn cicada. But I, who have read Great Love Immortal thoroughly, know this secret, so I chose to exchange without hesitation with the school beauty. Originally, in the world of Great Love Immortal, when it comes to reality, every person over the age of 16 can open up their inner acupoints to test their aptitude. Aptitudes are divided into A, B, C, D, and even more terrifying 10 extreme bodies. After the age of 18, people can awaken their innate goo worms. The higher the aptitude, the more powerful the awakened goo worms will be. At this moment, in the awakening square, the school flower Lu Yenran stood stiff in place, even suspecting if she had misheard. Can a normal person exchange the Hongyun Chitian gu for her spring-autumn cicada? Although both the Hongyun Chitian gu and the spring-autumn cicada are 6 transformation immortal gu, their effects are vastly different. If one can refine the Hongyun Chitian gu, it would greatly increase a person's luck, especially for Lu Yenran and me. We are both of the 10 extreme physiques. She has the North Sea Ice Soul physique, and I have the Mooncatcher Eagle Wilderness physique. If you can't become an immortal, then you can only explode your body. And at this moment, the usefulness of luck is reflected. If luck explodes, it is really possible to step into the legendary realm of ancient immortals. The entire Dragon Kingdom, even the most powerful woman, only has peak cultivation at the 7th level, and there are no more than 20 ancient immortals who have reached the 6th level. But Zhou Tian actually wanted to exchange her good luck Chitian gu with the spring and autumn cicada. You probably haven't refined the spring and autumn cicada yet, right? I want to exchange your spring and autumn cicada with my Chitian gu. I repeated what I had just said. After hearing my words, not only Lu Yenran, but everyone around showed a shocked expression. Did I hear it wrong? Zhou Tian actually wants to exchange gu worms. Before Lu Yenran could answer, the teacher and several school leaders next to her hurried over. Zhou Tian, are you crazy? Do you know what you're talking about? If you exchange gu worms, your life will be ruined. The sexy female teacher stood in front of the two, anxiously said. Hearing the words of the female teacher, I shook my head. Teacher, I am serious. You don't need to persuade me anymore. Although the Hongyun Chitian gu is indeed very powerful, but for me, the limit is still too low, and there are many more powerful existences than the Hongyun Chitian gu, such as the spring-autumn cicada. At this moment, Lu Yenran also came to her senses and turned to look at me. Zhou Tian, thank you for your kindness, but this is my fate. Perhaps my destiny is to meet an inevitable death. She also naturally knew that the spring-autumn cicada had no abilities and using it as her lifeblood gu was just a burden. In fact, Lu Yenran had also speculated whether the effect of the spring-autumn cicada was too abnormal, causing everyone to be unable to harness this power, but all of this was unknown. The Hongyun Chitian gu has no such concerns. As long as it is refined, it can obtain boundless opportunities, and if nothing unexpected happens, it will definitely be able to achieve gu immortal in the future. But I shook my head. Others may not know the purpose of the spring and autumn cicada. How could I not know? So I interrupted her directly. I have already considered this matter thoroughly, and it was a voluntary exchange for me. I want the spring and autumn cicada because I feel its abilities are more suitable for me, not out of pity for you. Now I want to ask you a question. Are you willing to make the exchange? Meanwhile, the deeds of me and Lu Yenran have become a hot topic nationwide. Seeing my firm attitude, Lu Yenran, feeling helpless, had no choice but to agree to my request. The two of us exchanged our respective gu insects. Looking at the spring and autumn cicada in my hand, a smile that was hard to conceal appeared on my face. To prevent any accidents, I grabbed the spring and autumn cicada and activated the true essence in my body, refining it in an instant. The special feature of the life gu is that it is extremely easy to refine. Even though I am currently only at the level of a first-level gu master, I can easily refine a 6th-level immortal gu. Watching me refine the spring and autumn cicada, Lu Yenran was so moved that she almost cried. Zhou Tian, thank you. I will definitely repay you in the future. Looking at Lu Yenran's expression, I really felt helpless. I just simply thought that the value of the spring and autumn cicada should be higher than the great luck equaling heaven gu, and I really had no other thoughts. At this moment, the former sexy female teacher changed her attitude. She no longer paid attention to me, but instead said to Lu Yenran, congratulations on refining the Hongyun Chitian gu. The school will spare no effort to cultivate you next, striving to help you break through the 5th transformation smoothly. Perhaps Zhou Tian was a genius before, a true pride of heaven. But everything changed when he refined the spring and autumn cicada. The pot-bellied principal also spoke up. That's right, what Teacher Lin said is correct. In the future, the school will be your backing. Faced with these compliments, Lu Yanran pursed her lips. Her expression on her face was very complicated. Obviously, she had just been the object of ridicule. But in just a moment, her identity completely changed, once again returning to her former genius self. Yanran Lu looked at me, but I had already left the crowd and was walking slowly in one direction. She wanted to catch up with me, but was stopped by the principal. Yanran Lu, your Hongyun Shitian Gu is a disposable goo insect, combined with your Biming ice body. We have prepared a complete set of ice path goo insects for you. Come with us now. Yanran Lu looked at my departing figure and murmured to herself, Zhou Tian, give me some time. When I become a goo immortal, I will be able to help you. On the other side, I have arrived at the school's goo insect hall. Here are various goo insects. The weakest has 1 transformation, and the strongest has 3 transformations. Students can consume original stones to purchase the goo insects they need here. My parents passed away early, and I live with my uncle and aunt. Because I awakened the 10 extreme body early, my life is still very comfortable, and I have saved a few hundred original stones over the years. A few hundred yuan stones could be completely exchanged for a first-turn compass. Walking into the companion pavilion, the staff member in charge of the place gave Zhou Tian a surprised look. Zhou Tian? I heard that you exchanged the spring and autumn cicada with the Han Luk Chi Tian compass? The internet said that you crave Yanran Lu's body to do this. That is to say, do you really like people? It's a young woman. At the moment, she was holding her face with her slender arm, gazing at Zhou Tian with interest. Zhou Tian glanced at the work tag on her chest. She was the administrator of the Compass Museum. Lin Qingyue, Teacher Lin. I would like to purchase a first-turn compulsion. Zhou Tian spelled out the reason for his visit. Buying a compulsion? Okay, you follow me. Lin Qingyue nodded. Seeing that Zhou Tian didn't want to say more, she didn't continue to chat about the topic. The female forest whispered as she got up and walked towards the location where the first-turn compass was stored, while Zhou Tian followed closely behind. Lin Qingyue led Zhou Tian up to the 2nd floor. When going up the stairs, I don't know if the female teacher did it on purpose. She deliberately stood a few steps in front of Zhou Tian. Lin Qingyue's figure was tall and she was wearing a short wraparound skirt. Now walking in front of Zhou Tian, his behavior carried a sense of seduction. However, Zhou Tian just looked at it. Zhou Tian crossed over. He had long since passed his fiery adolescence, and faced such a flirtatious female teacher. Zhou Tian would only look at it at most. This was the first time Zhou Tian had come to the Compass Museum. Going up to the 2nd floor, Zhou Tian took a glance and immediately saw one table after another, and stored in the glass cabinets above were various kinds of parasites, and in front of the table there were the detailed names of the parasites, as well as their effects. Take your pick. The ability of the compulsion as well as the price is written above. Also, seeing as you are rather handsome, sister will give you a 20% discount. Lin Qingyue leaned against the wall and spoke meaningfully. Thank you, teacher. Zhou Tian said politely. Call me what teacher? Just call me Sister Lin. Lin Qingyue directly said. Zhou Tian nodded, then examined these parasites one by one. The cheapest compotes, which were some functional compotes, were sold for only 100 yuan stones. The more expensive ones were the various healing compotes, which sold for around 200 yuan stones. The most expensive ones were the attack type as well as defense type compotes, which sold for the highest price, with the most expensive one reaching a surprising 500 yuan stones. You have to realize that this is still only a first-turn compulsion. 500 yuan stones were almost enough for an ordinary family to use for decades. But on the contrary, Zhou Tian's gaze stopped on this parasite. Zodiacal compulsion, time-stopping compulsion. Ability, can greatly reduce the passage of time around them. The more compulsive people around them, the higher the consumption of true essence. Food, time-stopped compotes feed on time and do not need to be fed. Note, the effect is greatly weakened against second-turn compassionists, and ineffective against third-turn compassionists. Looking at the time-stop compass in front of him, the corner of Zhou Tian's mouth curled up slightly. This was the only Aegis compass in the entire compass hall, and its effects were the most perverse. While it's impossible to actually pause time, reducing the flow of time around you is something that will play out strongly in battle. But my yuan sure. Only 200. Zhou Tian took out his yuan sure bag with a hesitant expression on his face. Should I purchase a normal attacking compulsion first to transition? Or should I go and raise yuan stones before purchasing a time-stopping compulsion? Zhou Tian was a bit hesitant. The value of this parasite was great to Zhou Tian. The laws that the ancient mooning desolate body itself was best suited to cultivate were the Tao of Zeus and then the Tao of the moon. As for Zhou Tian, He already had the spring and autumn cicada, a 6-turn Zuideo immortal compass, and taking the Zuideo to become an immortal was his best option. And besides the Zuido compass, the second thing Zhou Tian needed was the luck compass. Using the spring and autumn cicada was 9 deaths, and if the luck wasn't good enough, then Zhou Tian would have to die in the river of time. If Zhou Tian could possess both the spring and autumn cicada and the Hong Luck Chi Tian compass, that would truly be a peak opening. But unfortunately, the reality was simply not up to Zhou Tian to do so, and he could only get the spring and autumn cicada first, and then find a way to get the other fortune compasses. Just at this time, Lin Qingyue suddenly walked over. What's wrong? She first glanced at Zhou Tian and then at the time-stop compass on the stage, a playful smile appearing on her face. Is it not enough money? Lin Qingyin wrapped her hands around her chest and gazed at Zhou Tian Dao. Well, this compulsion is very important to me. Can this compulsion be kept for me and I'll come back to purchase it in 3 days? Zhou Tian opened his mouth. He didn't want to miss this opportunity. The spring and autumn cicada's compatibility was 0, so if it could refine the time-stop compass, it could greatly increase Zhou Tian's combat power. It's fine. You can directly refine this compulsion. Consider it as a treat from your sister. But sister has helped you so much. You mustn't treat sister to a meal and thank her properly? Lin Qingyi said meaningfully. Chapter 4: The Power of the Time-Stopping Compulsion. Feeling Lin Qingyue's gaze, Zhou Tian instantly understood the deep meaning it contained. This teacher, trying to eat an old cow. You can't even marry at 25 or 26 yourself. And you're staring at 18-year-old students like yourself. Well, I'll treat the teacher to dinner someday. Zhou Tian nodded. For the sake of this time-stop compass, Zhou Tian could only agree first. There's no need to change the day. My sister is free today. And sis, you can have a cold one today. Lin Qingyue blinked her slender eyelashes and hinted at Zhou Tian. Well, today then, but don't back out. Teacher, Zhou Tian continued. It's fine to crave your own body, but the point is that this teacher don't be a white-whoring dog. Don't worry, teacher is not like that. Lin Qingyue said, directly opening the glass lid and taking out the compotes inside. Zhou Tian received the compulsion and then immediately activated the spring and autumn cicada's pressure. The spring and autumn cicada was an immortal compass, which was equivalent to being an immortal amongst the compasses. The terrifying pressure instantly enveloped the parasite, and Zhou Tian urged his true essence to pour into the parasite. In an instant, the time-stop compass was successfully refined by Zhou Tian. So fast. Right, I almost forgot. You do have the immortal compass spring and autumn cicada, able to use the pressure to forcibly refine the compulsion. Lin Qingyue said indistinctly. In her eyes, this might be the only use for the spring and autumn cicada. Ordinary people who wanted to refine the parasites needed to use their own power to erase the consciousness of the parasites, because only in this way can the consciousness of the parasite be catalyzed without obstacles. The fastest an ordinary compass master could take was a few days if he wanted to refine a compass. But Zhou Tian was different, using the pressure of the immortal compass to be able to instantly refine it. Then, teacher, I'll leave first. Zhou Tian refined the parasites and directly prepared to leave. I'll be across the street at the night tavern at 8 o'clock this evening, and we'll see you there. Lin whispered. Good. Zhou Tian agreed cheerfully. But Zhou Tian's heart burst into a cold laugh. Now that you've refined the time-stopping compulsion yourself, you'll still let you whore yourself out for nothing? You want to get your own body? You're kidding. Zhou Tian slowly walked down the stairs, preparing to leave the Compass Museum. But as he was about to walk out of the compost house, he brushed shoulders with someone. This is one of Zhou Tian's classmates, named Li Erlong. Yo, isn't this Zhou Tian? I didn't expect to meet you here. Li Erlong stopped in front of Zhou Tian with a provocative smile on his face. Anything? Zhou Tian asked rhetorically in a calm tone. What is it? Of course it's here to taunt you. A former genius who has clearly awakened the Hong Luck Chi Tian compass. Yet you want to exchange it for Yanran Lu's spring and autumn cicada. Don't think that you can get Lu Yanyan's heart just like that. Let me tell you, I'm a grade A qualification, and my innate compulsion is a 5-turn blood droplet. Even if Yanran Lu really wants a boyfriend, she'll choose me. Not a loser like you, Li Erlong taunted. In the face of Li Erlong's mockery, Zhou Tian had already been prepared in his heart. He himself had lost the sharpness of his genius the moment he chose to exchange the spring and autumn cicada. At this time of year, any cat or dog will come jumping in the face to mock. It is true that a horse is good at being ridden and a man is good at being bullied by a dog. And then what? Zhou Tian asked flatly in return. If Zhou Tian really generated anger because of Li Erlong's words, then the book Big Love Immortal Dignity was really considered a waste of time. And then what? Bully you? Of course. You're a 10 extinction body. It won't be long before you explode yourself, even if I kill you. Do you think anyone will care? Li Erlong said with a greedy expression on his face. Immediately afterward, a blood light appeared in the palm of Li Erlong's hand, and gradually coalesced into the shape of a parasite. This parasite had a huge mouthparts and a pair of huge wings that seemed to be as sharp as blood-colored blades. This blood droplet is a fourth turn compulsion, raising and using in one. Very strange. It feeds exclusively on the vital essence blood of the composter, and after it has had its fill, it will fission and divide, changing from 1 to 2, and from 2 to 4. If they are hungry and can't find food for a while, they will devour each other and reduce the size of the colony to sustain the consumption of their own life activities. When the blood droplets were strong, the flying insects covered the sky and could destroy villages in villages, and they were even more terrifying than many six-turn compotes. When it was weak, 1 or 2 of them were alone, not even as good as a third rotation compulsion, especially since this blood droplet was promoted further. It was the famous sixth-turn demonic compass blood godchild. In the ranking of the top 10 demonic parasites, it was ranked 7th. If the blood drops could eat a 10 Jedi body like Zhou Tian's, the power would definitely increase tremendously. Li Erlong, this is a school, not a place for you to be reckless. Next to her, Lin Qingyue immediately shouted angrily in a delicate voice, and at the same time, she also activated the parasites in her body. Only she wasn't very strong. Only 2 turns. Moreover, the qualifications and the native compulsion were not strong, and it was not a match for Li Erlong at all. Is this the capital of your arrogance? Zhou Tian pulled Lin Qingyue behind himself. At this point in time she wasn't going to come in handy at all. It was simply delusional for a first-turn compass master to try to catalyze a fourth-turn compass. However, this blood droplet was an innately great killing weapon that did not require too much true essence to be consumed to use, and with the might of the 4 compulsions, even a single strike could kill Zhou Tian. Naturally, Li Erlong said. Hearing this, Zhou Tian sighed helplessly, but then, a cold light was revealed in Zhou Tian's eyes. Immediately after that, Zhou Tian immediately urged the compulsion, and the time around him unexpectedly and rapidly became slow at this moment. Double. Under Zhou Tian's constant consumption of true essence, the flow of time and the surroundings unexpectedly decreased by dozens of times. It was almost as if it was going to stagnate directly. Time stop compulsion. Completely effective at this moment, the time stop compass could greatly slow down the flow of time around them, and the more true essence consumed, the stronger the delay. Zhou Tian, on the other hand, was a 10 Jedi body, possessing 10% of true essence in his body. The power of its outburst could almost completely pause time. Li Erlong immediately sensed that something was wrong, but by the time he realized it, it was already too late, and all his consciousness became extremely slow at the moment. Zhou Tian, on the other hand, was not affected at all. Before the other party could activate the compulsion, Zhou Tian kicked up, directly knocking Li Erlong to the ground. The battle must be resolved as soon as possible. The time-stopping compulsion can only be effective for a maximum of 10 seconds. Zhou Tian fought in his heart and once again slammed his fist on Li Erlong's face. The power erupted from the one-turn time-stopping compulsion was still too weak, and it would lose its effectiveness in a dozen seconds or so at most. And once the time was over, then Zhou Tian would have to meet Li Erlong's blood drops. Right now, Zhou Tian was not a match for the blood drops at all, and if he allowed Li Erlong to use it, then Zhou Tian would just die for sure. Zhou Tian held the determination of certain death in his heart, and punched Li Erlong's solar plexus again and again. A dozen seconds passed in a flash, and Li Erlong was as limp as a dead dog on the ground. Zhou Tian, on the other hand, was panting heavily from using too much strength. He stared at the Li Erlong in front of him with a deadly stare. Even though Li Erlong's appearance was very wretched right now, but it was certain that Li Erlong was definitely not dead. Zhou Tian. Lin Qingyue watched this scene nervously, a heart in her throat, and just at this time, a group of school leaders from the school all rushed over. What the hell is going on here? Someone give me an explanation. The big-bellied principal, his eyes blazing as he watched this. Chapter 5, The Test in a Week's Time. Looking at the people who had suddenly arrived, Zhou Tian sighed helplessly. Naturally he wasn't worried about any punishment. It was just a bit of a shame. It was a pity that he hadn't been able to take away Li Erlong's blood drop compass. Li Erlong's blood drop compass was a fourth turning compass. If Zhou Tian could obtain it, it would greatly enhance Zhou Tian's combat power. And the food to feed it is simple. It only requires the blood of the companions. And the more the blood droplet was used, the stronger it became. And the more compassionate masters it killed, the more blood droplets it divided into. Zhou Tian, what just happened? Tell me clearly. Teacher will back you up. Just at this time, a female teacher walked over. She was Zhou Tian's classroom teacher. The matter is simple. Li Erlong tried to snatch my spring and autumn cicada, but I killed him back. Zhou Tian said in a serious manner. Snatching your spring and autumn cicada? You're afraid you're not kidding. Is Li Erlong crazy to rob your spring cicada? Immediately, someone coldly mocked. Zhou Tian glanced at it. It was a man with a flat head. Although he was not sure of his name, Zhou Tian had already secretly memorized the face. When there was an opportunity, Zhou Tian would definitely make him pay. Zhou Tian, are you telling the truth? And how did you defeat Li Erlong? His compulsion is a 5-rotation blood droplet. The principal gazed at Zhou Tian and asked the most crucial question. The surrounding people immediately came to a realization when they heard the principal's words. That's right, Li Erlong had awakened a 5th turn compulsion. The Zhou Heavenly Awakener was only the weakest spring and autumn cicada, so how could he be a match for Li Erlong? I've refined a second compulsion called the time stop compulsion. Relying on the time stop compulsion, I was able to keep from being robbed of the spring and autumn cicada by Li Erlong. And, Ms. Lin Xingyue can testify for me. Zhou Tian was not the least bit timid and continued to speak. Time-stopping compulsion? The principal sniffed, his face a little grave. He was the principal of this school, so how could he not know the effects of the time-stopping compulsion? Although the time-stop compulsion was a first-turn compulsion, the effect was very powerful among all first-turn compulsion, able to suspend the time around it. However, there was a price to pay, and activating the time-stop compass required a great drain on the compassionist's true essence. It seems like Zhou Tian shouldn't have lied. The time-stop compulsion does consume a lot of true essence, but it's just that Zhou Tian is a 10 extinction body, with 10% of true essence within his empty orifices. In contrast, Li Erlong, although he possesses a 4th rotation blood droplet, he himself is still only a 1st rotation compassion master. The grade A qualification only has about 90% of true essence, so I can't say that just this amount of true essence isn't enough to catalyze a single blood drop. The principal thought to himself, and right at that moment, Lin Xingyue, who was next to him, also spoke again. Yes, I can testify that it was Li Erlong who first plotted against him, and Zhou Tian was acting in self-defense. Lin Xingyue's words reached everyone's ears. It made the atmosphere heavy again. Lin Xingyue was the administrator of the companion pavilion. It was naturally impossible for her to have known Zhou Tian in the past, so there was no way she could have lied. So her words are still very convincing. Although it was Li Erlong who was in the wrong first, but your hand is too heavy. Later go back and write a 2,000-word check, the principal righteously said to Zhou Tian. The principal then had Erlong Li taken to the infirmary. The matter was left unsettled, and the school leaders left the stage one after another. In the end, only Lin Xingyue, Zhou Tian, and Zhou Tian's sexy female teacher remained. Zhou Tian, no matter what, you beat up Li Erlong after all. Teacher isn't saying you're wrong, she's just saying try to be more careful in the future so you don't get retaliated against by Erlong Li. The sexy female teacher said. Got it, teacher. Zhou Tian nodded his head in greeting. Her words weren't wrong. Not killing Li Erlong this time would always leave a hidden danger. Alright, come back to class with me. We'll have a final class meeting, the sexy female teacher said again. Okay, teacher. Zhou Tian nodded. As he was leaving, Zhou Tian even gave Lin Xingyue a special look. Zhou the reason why Zhou Tian was able to remain unharmed, in which Lin Xingyue played no small role. If Lin Xingyue didn't speak up for herself, then even if Zhou Tian was justified, then she would still suffer punishment. That's the way it is in this society. Zhou Tian is a 10 Jedi body with high qualifications, but he is a short-lived ghost. Moreover, the instinctive compulsion was still the spring and autumn cicada, which was even more of a proper waste in the eyes of others. In this case, the school would definitely favor Erlong Li more as well. However, it was estimated that everyone did not expect Lin Xingyue to help speak for this waste of a man. Zhou Tian, returning to the classroom with the sexy female teacher, Zhou Tian sat down in his seat. Students, everyone has now awakened their respective natal compulsion. There are high and low turnings, and teacher hopes that you won't be proud or discouraged by this matter. Qualification can't determine everything. Low qualification can also be improved by other compotes, just like the wine bug and the blood skull. Ahem. Awakening the original destiny as a powerful person is nothing more than a higher starting line. It doesn't mean anything. Our Dragon Kingdom's Empress, at first, was only of D-grade qualification, and the instinctive compulsion she awakened was even only of the first turn. But Her Majesty the Empress relied on her above-average perseverance and talent to finally become the strongest person in our Dragon Kingdom. The sexy female teacher first comforted some of the less qualified students, because these students make up the majority. In the entire class, other than Zhou Tian, a 10 Jedi body, there wasn't even a single Class A qualification. There are only 2 B-class qualifications, and the rest are C-class and D-class. The highest of awakened benevolent compasses was 3 or 4 revolutions, and the lowest was only 1. After comforting her, the sexy female teacher got down to business. Starting today, the school will be giving you a subsidy of 5 yuan stones per day until 3 months later. when you actually graduate. And the next course will be changed. The morning will be a theory class as well as the use of compulsion. In the afternoon you are free to use it for cultivation. At the same time the school will also develop tests for you. The first of which will be your use of compulsion. A week later, the campus competition opens. The first place can get 500 yuan share rewarded by the school. The second place 200. Originally, the student who awakened the weak compulsion was still very frustrated. After all, there were quite a few geniuses in this session, and there were quite a few who had good qualifications, and even awakened powerful instinctive compulsions. What's more, the ones who awakened the immortal compass had two of them. Zhou Tian's act of exchanging the Hongyan Qi Tian compass for the spring and autumn cicada was even on the national hot search. But now that they were so comforted by the sexy female teacher, many of the students had rekindled their fighting spirit. What's wrong with low qualifications? You can break through to compassion immortal if you work hard. Compost junk? So what? Big deal. I'll refine the compulsion step by step, and promote the native compulsion from the first turn to the sixth turn. Dry this bowl of chicken soup, and we'll all rush together. This class meeting lasted for half an hour, and at the end, the teacher handed out 5 yuan stones to all the students. When it was over, everyone was ready to go home, wanting to tell their parents about whatever natal compulsion they had awakened. But Zhou Tian was not like the vast majority of people, because he did not have parents. School's out, and I happen to be short of dollar stones in my hand right now. Zhou Tian's pupils radiated a glimmer of light as he thought of the deeds of the great love immortal. It's easy to get yuan stones. Just ask your classmates to borrow it. Chapter 6, Fight to the Conviction. The corner of Zhou Tian's mouth instantly curled up as he gave birth to this thought. One had to rely on these classmates of his at the critical moment. Otherwise where would Zhou Tian go to earn yuan share? Of course, Zhou Tian was well aware that this was not morally permissible. But in the face of strength, morality, go yourself. The location of the school is actually a bit remote, and there is only one road out of the school that leads to the city. Zhou Tian came to the school gate early and waited for his classmates to come out. The school uniforms of the companions were different from ordinary students, so Zhou Tian quickly spotted the target. A group of students that were slowly walking towards themselves. Who's that guy at the front door? It's Zhou Tian? What's he doing standing at the door? Probably waiting for someone. Maybe it's Yanran Lu. He, what a waste. A toad still wants to eat swan meat. Really thinks he's still a genius. The crowd was laughing and joking, and had already arrived in front of Zhou Tian. The current Zhou Tian was already a waste in the eyes of the others, and none of them had him in their eyes. However, Zhou Tian directly stopped in front of these people. Robbery. Everyone hand over 2 yuan stones or no one is allowed to leave. The moment Zhou Tian finished his sentence, everyone froze a little. Zhou Tian? Are you out of your mind? How dare you try to rob at the school gate? That's crazy. You don't take a piss and look at yourself. You really think you're still the genius you once were. Hurry up and get out. Refining the most trashy spring and autumn cicada, and still dare to be so arrogant. Beware of the old man drying up. Ah! Just as the other party spoke, Zhou Tian instantly kicked up. Zhou Tian's kick was powerful and heavy, barely allowing his opponent any time to react. Where did this boy react? He was kicked hard in the stomach and directly went limp on the ground. I don't know if Zhou Tian's strength was too great or if the boy was too weak, but he actually fainted from the pain directly after this kick. Zhou Tian, you it! How dare you really hit someone? Seeing Zhou Tian make a move, everyone froze and looked at Zhou Tian with even more panic. Is this a kick in the ass for Yang Wei? What are we going to do? Damn pissed off. A punk still dares to be so arrogant. There are so many of us. Can we still be afraid of him alone? One of the boys immediately prodded the compulsion. His palm revealed a hint of crescent light, followed by an instantaneous eruption of a powerful force. The light blade that took the shape of a crescent moon instantly shot over towards Zhou Tian. It's a moonlight compulsion. Zhou Tian immediately guessed the other party's compulsion. It was just the most ordinary first-turn moonlight compulsion. However, Zhou Tian did not dare to take it lightly and immediately activated the time-stop compass to slow down the flow of space around him. After dodging the other party's attack, Zhou Tian leapt towards the other party and once again kicked down. The kick was relentless and the boy was kicked straight down. Asterisk. The boy let out a wail and couldn't hold himself up either, falling limp to the ground. Seeing this, the remaining few people also urged their parasites to try to counterattack. However, it was only the first time they had ever activated a compulsion, and they were not skilled at all. While Zhou Tian's time-stop compulsion was simple and crude, directly slowing down the flow of time. Against these miscellaneous fish and shrimps, Zhou Tian didn't even need to deal with them like he did with Li Erlong. He could easily deal with them by just slightly slowing down the flow of time. Soon, all the boys were paralyzed on the floor with pained expressions on their faces. Just at this time, A girl slowly walked towards this side. Zhou Tian, what's going on? The person who came was Yen Ranlu. It's Yen Ranlu. We're saved. Fang Yuan, he's trying to rob us of our yuan stones. Lu Yenran, you beat him up. Someone immediately said to Yen Ranlu. Ha, looks like I was still too light on my hands just now, Zhou Tian said. Another kick was made towards the other parties, but, oh, the boy let out a scream and immediately covered his ass. A face that was a little red at the moment. Robbing your yuan stones. Also, Zhou Tian, you should be very short of yuan stones right now. I have a school grant of $50 stones a day that I can give you if you need it, Yen Ran said. She originally didn't know how to repay Zhou Tian. Now that Zhou Tian needed yuan stones, it was just the right time to repay Zhou Tian through this matter. Hearing Yen Ranlu's words, Zhou Tian was also a bit surprised. Sure enough, that's the difference between a genius and an ordinary person. For geniuses like Yen Ranlu, the school's support would be even greater. Several times that of ordinary students. Hand over your yuan stones then. 40 of them. Zhou Tian slowly said. Yes, Lu Yenyen said, directly handing Zhou Tian 2 money bags, which contained a total of 40 yuan stones. Yen Ranlu, now you can leave. As for you guys, obediently hand over your yuan stones as well. Zhou Tian swept his gaze towards the remaining people. What should we do? Even Yen Ranlu doesn't dare to resist. Should we pay yuan sure as well? Hand it over, let's not lose out. We'll tell the teacher tomorrow. Yes, if Zhou Tian does this, I don't believe the teacher won't punish him. Most girls are weak in nature and want to spend money to get rid of their problems. However, just at this time, a burst of angry voices suddenly came from Zhou Tian's ears. Zhou Tian, you, with a punk like you still want to rob us of yuan sure? In an instant, blood and light cut through. Zhou Tian immediately activated the time-stop compass, lowering the flow of time around him. Zhou Tian turned around and immediately saw a blood-colored light coming towards him. The shape of this light was similar to that of a moonlight compulsion, both of which were curved moon-shaped blades of light. The color, however, was a weird blood red. This is the blood moon compulsion. Zhou Tian judged the name of the parasite. The blood moon compass, which was a third turn compulsion, was formed by combining the moon mantle compass and the blood chi compass. The damage is not much increased, but attacking the enemy can cause a bleeding effect, and it is best at prolonged battles. Zhou Tian sidestepped and dodged the attack of the blood moon compass. Immediately after that, Zhou Tian's eyes shifted and his gaze was placed on the boy in front of him. It was a boy with a center parting and a pair of backpacking pants. Great! It's Kai Kuanpeng. We're saved. Kai Kuanpeng is a genius with B-grade qualifications. Only Kai Kuanpeng can fight against the abominable Zhou Tian. Go Kai Kuanpeng. The surrounding students looked at classmate Kai Kuanpeng, and there was immediately more adoration in their eyes. Zhou Tian, you're just too hateful. It's not even if you've become a waste yourself, but now you want to rob your classmates of their yuan stones, Kai Kuanpeng said viciously. Want to play the hero? I'll give you 2 choices. Either voluntarily admit your submission, or be beaten by me until you submit, Zhou Tian said in a cold voice, and slowly walked towards Kai Kuanpeng. Right now, Kai Kuanpeng was 10 meters away from Zhou Tian, but Zhou Tian's time-stop compass could only affect time within 3 meters. Therefore, Zhou Tian had to take this opportunity to get as close to the other party as possible. Oh, I look forward to you beating me into submission. Chapter 7 Attitudes in Schools, Kai Kuanpeng said without any fear. In his eyes, Zhou Tian was now a real trash. The spring and autumn cicada didn't have any abilities, and Zhou Tian's current battle power wasn't even any different from that of an ordinary first-turn compassion master. And Cai Kuanpeng? Although he was not the strongest, he thought that it would be easy for him to deal with Zhou Tian. Then in that case, don't blame me for being rude, Zhou Tian said in a cold voice. As soon as the words fell, Zhou Tian immediately and swiftly attacked towards Kai Kuanpeng. His speed was extremely fast, and he arrived in front of Kai Kuanpeng with just a flash. Kai Kuanpeng didn't dare to be careless. He knew that he wasn't Zhou Tian's opponent if he fought physically, but right at this moment, a cold light was revealed in Kai Kuanpeng's eyes. Singing and dancing rap comp. A compulsion was once again activated by Kai Kuanpeng's mind. In the next moment, Kai Kuanpeng's figure also became very agile, directly pulling away from Zhou Tian. Ha ha ha, Zhou Tian, you want to progress, but I'm not going to give you a chance to fight in close combat. My singing and dancing rap compulsion can greatly enhance one's sensitivity and reflexes. You can't even get close to me, Kai Kuanpeng mocked. Hearing Kai Kuanpeng's words, the corner of Zhou Tian's mouth curled slightly. Oh, already refined the second compulsion? Zhou Tian looked meaningfully at Kai Kuanpeng. He also didn't expect that on the first day someone would choose to refine the second compulsion instead of as soon as possible. That's right, now if you obediently beg for forgiveness from me, I can still let you go. Otherwise, Don't blame me for not remembering my classmates' love, Kai Kuanping said again, his eyes filled with contempt. Don't miss the love of your classmates? Oh, if I guessed correctly, you only have a B grade qualification. Right, with at most 60 or 70% of true essence in your body. I, on the other hand, am the one with the 10 extinction body and have 10% of my true essence. Do you think your true essence will run out first? Or mine? Zhou Tian responded. What Zhou Tian said was also true. Qualifications determine everything in this world. The higher the qualification, the more true essence in the body's empty orifices. For a 10 Jedi body like Zhou Tian's, the empty orifices in his body possess 10% of his true essence, and the speed of true essence recovery far exceeded that of other people. But Kai Kuanping, just a B grade qualification, prompting 2 parasites at the same time wouldn't last long at all. Hearing Zhou Tian's words, Kai Kuanping instantly became anxious. This was indeed his weakness. Although both compasses were powerful, their qualifications were far inferior to Zhou Tian's. If it came down to a prolonged battle, then Kai Kuanping was definitely not Zhou Tian's opponent. And just at this time, Zhou Tian sensed that Kai Kuanping was somewhat distracted, and his body once again rapidly approached towards the other party. Seeing Zhou Tian rapidly coming towards him, Kai Kuanping immediately tried to catalyze the singing and dancing rap compass, wanting to pull away from Zhou Tian once again. But it was already too late. Kai Kuanping was now only a few meters away from Zhou Tian, just within the range of Zhou Tian's time-stopping compulsion. Time-stopping compulsion. Zhou Tian activated the time-stop compass, and the time around him immediately began to slow down rapidly, to the point where it was as if it was completely frozen like a frozen river. No good. Kai Kuanping sensed that something was wrong and immediately shifted his tactics, urging the blood moon compass to attack towards Zhou Tian. Seek death. Zhou Tian hummed contemptuously. Kai Kuanping was only a first-turn compassion master, and was simply unable to break through the time-stopping compassion's time stagnation. In the next moment, Zhou Tian had arrived in front of Kai Kuanping and knocked him down with a punch. Ah! Kai Kuanping let out a pained scream, and without any mercy, Zhou Tian kicked towards the other's ass again. No! Don't hit me! I'll give you all the yuan stones. Kai Kuanping completely wimped out and begged for mercy towards Zhou Tian. Kai Kuanping took out his 5 yuan stones and held them in front of Zhou Tian. Zhou Tian took a look and just took 2 pieces. Not all of them. Looking at this scene, the surrounding students were all shocked in their hearts. Damn it! Even Kai Kuanping was knocked down by Zhou Tian. Without Kai Kuanping, how are we supposed to fight against Zhou Tian? It's easy. I'll just tell the teacher no. Damn Zhou Tian. The school will definitely give him a punishment. The rest of the students clenched their fists, but no one dared to resist. Now, it's your turn. Zhou Tian looked around at these people who were watching and said again. This time, no one dared to resist and obediently handed over the 2 yuan stones to Zhou Tian. And after getting the yuan stones, Zhou Tian wouldn't make things difficult for them and obediently let them go. In the back, there were some great qualified geniuses who thought they could easily defeat Zhou Tian. And Zhou Tian's response was simple, to conquer by force. After doing all this, Zhou Tian looked at the yuan stones in the money bag and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. This robbery has yielded a total of 300 yuan stones. Not bad at all. Instead of working hard for your money, you can just grab other people's hold-ups. Zhou Tian is now a waste in the eyes of the school, and the kind that will die soon. So naturally, school grants don't go to yourself. In that case, then, Zhou Tian could only think of something on his own. However, Zhou Tian was also very clear that although these 300 yuan stones were quite a lot, they were not enough for Zhou Tian. Composter cultivation, purchasing compotes, and feeding them all required the consumption of a large amount of yuan stones. Zhou Tian naturally didn't need too many yuan stones to cultivate, but he had to prepare for other aspects. The 10 extinction body, because the true essence in the body was too majestic, when it was cultivated to 3 or 4 revolutions, there was a high possibility that it would directly burst through the empty orifices, thus blowing itself up and dying. Therefore, Zhou Tian must make preparations in advance. There are many ways to deal with the 10 extinction body, and I can utilize the time-stop compass right now to reduce the flow of time within the empty orifices, thus prolonging the time to self-destruct. But this treats the symptoms rather than the root cause, and will also affect my cultivation advancement. And on top of that, I can purchase stone trick compasses, yin-yang transmutation compasses, and those, no matter what method it is, it requires an extremely large amount of yuan stones. Zhou Tian secretly thought in his heart, not wanting to die by blowing himself up. Zhou Tian had only one way to do so, and that was to develop himself as quickly as possible. And it was at this time that Zhou Tian noticed that Yanran Lu did not leave. Instead, she was watching herself. Sensing Zhou Tian's gaze, Yanran Lu walked towards Zhou Tian. Anything else? Zhou Tian looked Lu Yanyan up and down and asked suspiciously. Zhou Tian, I'd like to invite you to dinner, Yanran Lu said with some hesitation. Dinner? That won't be necessary. You're the genius schoolgirl and I'm just a loser. Some people will definitely feel offended if we get too close. On the other side, the principal's office. Headmaster, this Zhou Tian is too much. To rob his classmates of their yuan stones. Just fire him and send him to law enforcement. A male teacher with a center parting. Exasperated. Hearing Mr. Nakatsuki's words, the principal took a sip of tea. His face unreadable. Why do I think that's actually a good thing? And just then, another teacher spoke up. This was a sexy female teacher. Zhou Tian's homeroom teacher. Oh, tell me, Mr. Lee, how is that a good thing? The principal put down his glass of water and looked meaningfully at Mr. Lee. Headmaster, don't you think our class is living too comfortably? Without danger, the students will have no motivation to cultivate. And Zhou Tian's behavior makes up for that. With Zhou Tian, I believe the other students will also feel the pressure, thus cultivating faster, wanting to come and defeat Zhou Tian. Chapter 8, The Wine Bug. After saying this, Mr. Lee looked at the principal with a burning gaze. As Zhou Tian's teacher, although Zhou Tian had disobeyed his own words and given the Hongyan Chi Tian compass to Yanran Lu, however, Teacher Lee was not so careful, and was still willing to choose to speak in Zhou Tian's favor at this time. Listening to Mr. Lee's words, the principal stroked his chin. Teacher Lee has a point. Zhou Tian's behavior like this can indeed pressure the other students to a certain extent. It's also true that the students have been living too comfortably all these years, and this isn't good for them to travel to the secret realm to practice in the future. The principal said slowly. Zhou Tian's behavior didn't touch the school's interests and even had some benefits, and that's not even the main reason. In fact, according to the school's rules, a 10 Jedi body like Zhou Tian's would be able to receive special subsidies from the school. Although the 10 extremities body was likely to self-destruct, the speed of cultivation far exceeded that of ordinary people. If he could be cultivated into an immortal, he would definitely be an extremely terrifying compass immortal. It's like Yu. She got a school grant. Not only was it a set of ice compasses, but there would even be 50 yuan stones per day. 50 yuan stones was almost enough to feed an ordinary family for a few months. However, because Zhou Tian had refined the spring and autumn cicada, combined with injuring the genius Li Erlong, who was of grade A qualification, this allowed the principal to directly waive Zhou Tian's subsidy. Headmaster, but even if that's the case, we can't allow Zhou Tian to do that. It's not fair to the other students either. The middle-scored teacher had already looked at Zhou Tian with displeasure, and at this time, he still wanted to continue to top Zhou Tian's blame. Fair? This society itself is not fair. The weak are the strong. What's more, Zhou Tian's approach was measured, only grabbing 2 yuan stones and not all of them. Mr. Lee said again. Alright, just let Zhou Tian toss it around. And I'm somewhat looking forward to whether refining the spring and autumn cicada will still change the fate of the 10 jaded body. The principal waved his hand. Listening to the principal's words, the middle-scoring teacher gritted his teeth. But in the end, he couldn't say anything. This was not the case with Mr. Lee next to him, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up in a smug expression. Outside the school, Zhou Tian was walking on the path outside. Suddenly, he jerked to a halt and gazed straight behind him, at the man hiding behind the pole. Stop hiding, I see you, Zhou Tian said coldly. Upon hearing Zhou Tian's words, the person behind the pole then walked out helplessly. This person was none other than Yanran Lu. What are you following me for? Zhou Tian looked at Yanran Lu, who had a face of being a thief, and asked somewhat breathlessly. Didn't I say before that I wanted to repay you? Yanran Lu said a little nervously. Looking at the stupidly adorable Yanran Lu, Zhou Tian couldn't help but shake his head. At this moment in front of Zhou Tian, Yanran Lu's image as the school's high and mighty school beauty was completely shattered. I said I don't want you to repay me, so if you really want to repay me, give me your body, Zhou Tian said somewhat helplessly. He had already said several times that he didn't need Yanran Lu's repayment, but this Lu Yanyan is too stubborn. Zhou Tian's words are not listened to at all. Solely Zhou Tian directly said the words of giving his body to dissuade Yanran Lu. Sure enough, hearing Zhou Tian's words, a hesitant expression instantly appeared on Yanran Lu's face. Seeing this expression, Zhou Tian directly turned around and continued walking towards the front. I do. And how about I cover you from now on? I'm already strong now, and I have 5 ice Dao compasses in my hands. Yanran Lu's voice once again reached Zhou Tian's ears. Hearing Yanran Lu's words, Zhou Tian once again stopped in his tracks. He didn't understand how there could be someone as stupid as Yanran Lu in this world. He had only given him a little help, but the other party wanted to return it 100 times, 1,000 times, even to the point of being willing to give my body in marriage. Zhou Tian turned around and spoke to Yan Ranlu, who was not far away. Little cutie. After saying these words, Zhou Tian did not look back and continued to walk forward. Listening to Zhou Tian's words, Yan Ranlu's face was instantly haunted by loss. She looked down at her toes, but her plump capitalization caused her to not see them at all. However, just as Yan Ranlu was losing her mind, her ears immediately heard Zhou Tian's voice once again. Come on, what do you want to eat? It's on me, Zhou Tian said with a voice filled with helplessness. Seeing Zhou Tian, who walked to her side, Yan Ranlu instantly became extremely excited. I knew you wouldn't turn me down. Yan flashed a smile. The duo went to a roadside stand near the school. The environment isn't exactly nice, and the food isn't exactly healthy, but it tastes great, and it's the preferred gathering place for many students. And after today's awakening ceremony, there were quite a few students who came here in groups to gather and discuss their future plans. However, because of Zhou Tian's behavior at the entrance of the school, it resulted in no one daring to approach him for a chat, and they all sat far away from Zhou Tian. Although I only have C-grade qualifications, I have awakened the first turn of the wineworm, and I will definitely be a lord in the future. Yes, I believe you. I only have D-grade qualifications. I've already figured it out. I'll ask my connections to go to the electronics factory to play screws in a few days, and I'll have a few yuan stones to take in a month. Your ambition is too small. Listen to me. Raise to the second turn at school as soon as possible, and then head to the secret realm. You might be able to find a compulsion to raise your qualifications. Listening to the words of the people around him, Zhou Tian also slightly stared. The secret world. Zhou Tian had news about the secret realm in his memory. Secret realms, which existed in every corner of this world, contained strong resources. If you were lucky, you would be able to find the right compulsion from the secret realm. But all the same, the secret realm was terrifying, with countless terrifying wild beasts and desolate beasts. If one was not careful, one would most likely die in the secret realm. Zhou Tian, from now on we'll be boyfriend and girlfriend? Just then, Yan Ranlu's words coldly reached Zhou Tian's ears. Hearing this, Zhou Tian gave Yan Ranlu an odd look in his eyes. Previously, his own joke, Lu Yanyan should not be taking it seriously, right? But at the moment, Lu Yanyan's eyes were very innocent, and Zhou Tian couldn't bear to say otherwise. Would you like some wine? I've heard the monkey wine here is good. Zhou Tian directly pulled away from the topic. When Yan Ranlu heard this, there was immediately some loss in her eyes, but it was quickly swept away, and she spoke to Zhou Tian. Of course it's fine, but I don't have a good capacity for alcohol, so just don't get me drunk. If you get me drunk, I won't be able to resist at all. Lu Yanyan's words were very serious, but these words were put into Zhou Tian's ears, but it was a proper lure. Boss, a jar of monkey wine. Zhou Tian said to the boss. Monkey wine, a very precious wine and a product of the secret realm, was very precious. For one jar of wine, it costs 10 yuan stones. Okay. The boss immediately walked over to Zhou Tian's table holding a jar of monkey wine. Zhou Tian opened the sealing clay of the monkey wine, and a clear fragrance instantly emanated out. It smells so good. Yan Ranlu, who didn't drink much, couldn't help but say with excitement at this moment. You too. Zhou Tian deliberately flirted, then poured a cup for Yan Ranlu. Hearing Zhou Tian's molestation, Lu Yanyan's face instantly turned a little scarlet and lowered her head once again. But just as Yan Ranlu lowered her head, she suddenly realized that a bug with the appearance of a seal suddenly flew onto the wine glass. Immediately after that, he began to gulp down the wine in Yan Ranlu's glass. Yikes! My drink! Yan Ranlu immediately said in surprise, trying to stop the bug from drinking. However, Zhou Tian directly stopped Yan Ranlu because he noticed that this bug was, surprisingly, a first-turn wine bug. Chapter 9, Homecoming. This is a first-turn wine bug. I didn't think that monkey's wine would be able to lure a wine bug, Zhou Tian said in a somewhat surprised tone. The wine bug, amongst all the first-turn compasses, was an absolute top-notch existence. It has an effect that enhances the strength of true essence. The true essence of a first-turn compassion master was bronze true essence. The true essence of a second-turn compassion master was red iron true essence. And the true essence of a third-turn compassion master was silver true essence. And each level of cultivation is divided into 4 stages, which are the beginning, middle, high, and peak. With each level of cultivation, the strength of one's true essence would also change, which could be seen from the color. Let's take the example of a first-turn compounder. The true essence of the first turn of the first stage was emerald green, the middle stage was pale green, the high stage was dark green, and the peak was dark green. If one could refine the wineworm, It would allow the true essence of a first-turn beginner-ranked Compassion Master to transform from an emerald green color to a middle-ranked pale green true essence. Its battle power, then, could be directly raised by 1 rank, and because the strength of the true element was increased, the speed of cultivation would also be increased accordingly. This was the terror of the wine bug, a compulsion that many composters dreamed of. This is actually a wine bug, Yenran Lu also said in surprise at this moment. I didn't realize that just coming out for a drink would attract alcoholics. Wine bugs feed on fine wine, and the more superb the wine, the more it attracts them. But it takes luck. Wild wine bugs are almost non-existent, not to mention the fact that this is in reality, not in a secret realm. The probability of being able to rely on fine wines to attract wine bugs is almost zero. But on the contrary, Yenran Lu encountered this matter. This should be the horror of the Hong Luk Chi heavenly compass. The Chi can be described as the peak. Zhou Tian couldn't help but say, having the Hong Luk Chi Tian compass, although it could not directly increase battle power, it could be gained on other levels. At the moment, the wine bug on top of the glass quickly finished the wine. Satisfied, the wine bug plopped right down on the table and fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this scene, Zhou Tian could not help but twitch the corners of his mouth. Obviously it could have been called a plug-in, but you called it the Hong Luk Chi Tian compulsion. Zhou Tian, this wine bug is drunk. Do you want to refine it? Yenran Lu said with some excitement. This is your wine bug, and it should be you who refines it. Zhou Tian refused. Wine bugs, which are really useful for other composters. However, for a 10 Jedi body like Zhou Tian, the effect would actually be very tiny, and there would even be side effects. Before there was a yin-yang transmutation compass, a compulsion that could change the ending of the self-destruction. Zhou Tian would not be able to raise his cultivation level too quickly, because the higher the cultivation level, the easier it is to self-destruct. But in fact, even if Zhou Tian didn't cultivate, the 10 extremities body itself could cultivate faster than any other compass master. That won't do. Even though the wine bugs are of little use to us, they can be sold. I've heard that the value of a wineworm is at least 500 yuan stones, and it's still marketable, Yenran said. She was also a 10 Jedi body, so she naturally knew that the effects of the wine bugs were not great on Zhou Tian. But if you can't use it yourself, you can also take it to exchange it for yuan stones. The current Lu Yanyan only wanted to repay Zhou Tian properly, so she naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Okay then. Zhou Tian didn't refuse anymore and directly grabbed the wine bug in his hand, refining it in an instant. Right now, what Zhou Tian lacked the most was yuan stones, and this wine bug, if it could be sold at a good price, could greatly solve Zhou Tian's needs. Objective. The food is ready. The owner came over with a couple plates of hot food. Seeing the food on the table, Yenran Lu couldn't wait to pick up her chopsticks. She had been hungry for a long time. Anyone who has been to school knows that school meals are a dime a dozen. Even if it's delicious, you're going to get tired of eating it for years on end. Zhou Tian and Yenran Lu chatted with each other without a word. Half an hour later, Yenran Lu stroked her slightly bulging stomach and revealed a satisfied expression. Eat up, Zhou Tian. Are you going home? I'll take you home, Yenran Lu cozily said to Zhou Tian. What's the point of sending me home? I'm not a kid, Zhou Tian asked with some confusion. So what? Other people's dates. Guys are supposed to take girls home, and I'll take a loss and send you home, Yenran Lu said in a serious manner. Looking at this little expression on Yenran Lu's face, Zhou Tian shook his head helplessly. For a girl like Yenran Lu, Zhou Tian really didn't know how to deal with it, because they don't have a routine, they have sincerity. Okay then, Zhou Tian said somewhat helplessly. He. Hearing Zhou Tian's words, Yenran Lu revealed a delighted expression. Under the escort of Yenran Lu, Zhou Tian arrived at the entrance of the neighborhood, and Yenran Lu was once again on the bus, heading back towards her home. Zhou Tian walked into the neighborhood, very calm inside. Zhou Tian is fatherless and motherless, boarding at his aunt and uncle's house. In the past, Zhou Tian's relationship with his aunt and uncle was not good. Only 2 years ago, after testing out the 10 Jedi body, it changed immediately. Since then, the aunt and uncle had practically offered Zhou Tian as if he were the god of wealth. Even their own daughter had become Zhou Tian's #1 little fan. But now, that's about to change. Zhou Tian walked the unfamiliar and familiar road to his aunt and uncle's home. Taking out the key and opening the door, Zhou Tian saw his aunt's waxen and angry face as soon as he walked in. You still have the face to come back? Why don't you die out there? Auntie's words were like steel needles that reached Zhou Tian's ears. However, Zhou Tian's face was very frank, and he simply ignored her words. Zhou Tian, come over here. I have something to say to you. Just at this time, Zhou Tian's uncle walked out and spoke to Zhou Tian in a serious manner. Anything? Zhou Tian responded flatly. He came home this time. just ready to pack up and leave. This home Jo Tian itself did not have a sense of belonging, and leaving would be more convenient for Jo Tian in the future. Jo Tian, we all know about the matter of you exchanging the Hongyun Chi Tian compass for the spring and autumn cicada. Now I'm only asking you one thing. Have you refined it? Can you still change the Hong Luk Chi Tian compass back? My uncle's words were flat, but it was hard to hide the disgust in his heart. This is human nature. There was a time when Jo Tian measured the 10 extinct bodies, and his aunt and uncle treated Jo Tian as a god of wealth. But after Jo Tian became a waste in the eyes of the world, then Jo Tian lost all value in their eyes. Naturally, it was refined. What's the problem? Jo Tian gazed at his uncle, his eyes not flickering. You, how did I get a nephew like you? The anger in his uncle's heart was completely unable to be hidden, and he immediately uttered a curse, letting the Hong Luk Chi Tian compass go unrefined, but choosing to be a wasteful spring and autumn cicada. There is no place for you in this house from now on. Pack your things and get out. Auntie also cursed at this moment. Just at this time, Jo Tian's sister also walked out. Brother, do you know that you are now the joke of our school? Do you know what they say about me? From now on, I'll never have a brother like you again. The sister had the same icy attitude. Chapter 10, Leaving Home. Got it. Jo Tian looked at the family of 3 and slowly spoke. Then, no matter what the other party said again, he went straight back into his room, packing up the items he usually needed to use. Jo Tian walked out with his suitcase. Let's see what you've got. Don't steal from our family, Auntie said in an aggressive tone. Upon hearing these words, Jo Tian instantly felt a surge of irritation. Although he was adopted by his aunt and uncle, it wasn't an adoption for nothing. His own parents' pension when they died, but all of it was taken away by his aunt and uncle, and there were at least thousands of yuanshi in it. At his aunt's command, the sister next to him was immediately about to grab Jo Tian's suitcase. But how could Jo Tian let them snatch it away at this moment? They are not allowed to do this even if they have only brought their own carry-on. Immediately, Jo Tian urged the time-stop compass and kicked his sister in the ass. Without all of them reacting, Jo Tian walked out the door, leaving only his sister on the floor with a confused look on her face. My butt hurts. Woo woo. My sister rubbed her ass and cried in aggravation on her face. As for the aunt and uncle, they didn't react at all either. Auntie is only mortal, and uncle is only a first-turn compassion master. They were simply no match for Jo Tian. It's the power of the parasites. This Jo Tian dares to make a move against us. It's really against him, my uncle said in annoyance. Luna, are you okay? Auntie asked with concern as she helped her sister to her feet. Humph, this Jo Tian is too hateful. He dares to hit me. Mom, you mustn't let him go, my sister commiserated. Looking at the other party's pitiful appearance, the aunt's heart softened for a while. Good, don't worry Xiao Yu. I'll make this damn bastard pay. Well, Mom, you're the best. Jo Tian walked out of his home and looked at the already darkened sky, the expression on his face once again becoming as calm as the water. Where to next? Jo Tian secretly thought in his heart. Jo Tian now had a full 500 yuan stones in his hand, which could completely buy a villa in the city center. But Jo Tian didn't want to spend all his yuan stones on this. Raising parasites, using parasites, and refining parasites all required a large amount of yuan stones. Forget it, let's find a hotel to stay in first, and wait until tomorrow to move to the school dormitory. Jo Tian secretly thought in his heart. The best way to save money is to move into a school dormitory. Only Jo Tian's previous home was close by, so he didn't choose to stay. But Jo Tian had just wanted to find a hotel when his own cell phone suddenly rang. Jo Tian took a look. It was an unfamiliar number. Hey, which one? Jo Tian immediately inquired. It's me. Forgetting my sister me so soon? A coquettish female voice came over the phone, and in just an instant, Jo Tian recognized the identity of the other party. It was none other than the administrator of the Compass Museum, Lin Qingyi. Jo Tian glanced at the time again. It was now 7:50. Lin Qingyi had asked Jo Tian out before, but Jo Tian hadn't put this matter on his mind at all. She only wanted to whore out Lin Qingyi's time-stopping compulsion for nothing. She didn't want to be whored out by Lin Qingyi. Of course I haven't forgotten. What's the matter? Jo Tian deliberately pretended to be confused. You kid, don't pretend to be stupid. Before all agreed to buy my sister a drink today. Where are you now? Lin Qingyi pouted. I'm getting ready to go to the hotel now, so if you want to come, meet me at the hotel. Jo Tian thought about it and said directly. You kid, I didn't see it before, but you're so bad. That hotel. My sister will come to you. Lin Qingyi once again said in a delicate voice. Sister Lin, you are really hungry. There are so many boys in our school. Do you just have to have me? Jo Tian said somewhat breathlessly. How is it that all the women in this world, one by one, want to plot against themselves? Alright, Since you're asking, then sister won't hide it from you. Recently, someone has been harassing my sister. Will you help out? Think of it as paying to hire you as a bodyguard. Lin Xingyue said again. Alright, Zhou Tian said. Zhou Tian next arrived near the school and chose a relatively high-end hotel. It's a world where compulsion and technology coexist, and for a place like a hotel, Zhou Tian didn't want to choose that kind of small guest house. This is because such small hotels are very worrying both in terms of safety and hygiene. He didn't want to be broadcast live. Arriving at the entrance of the hotel, Zhou Tian saw Lin Xingyue waiting in front of the door at a glance. The current Lin Xingyue was dressed differently than during the day. During the day, Lin Xingyue was dressed in regular clothes, but now she had changed into a black halter dress. Under the illumination of the dim light, Lin Xingyue's fair skin took on a tantalizing luster. Especially her neck as slender as a swan was mesmerizing to look at. Although Lin Xingyue was dressed sexily, her bones revealed an air of nobility, which was different from ordinary nightclub princesses. Zhou Tian, you're finally here. Seeing Zhou Tian appear, Lin Xingyue revealed a satisfied expression. I was kicked out of my house. You're not supposed to be kicked out too, are you? Zhou Tian joked. How? But it's close. The family set up a blind date. I don't like him. He's a pretender. Every time he talks to me he's pretending, Lin Xingyue said in a somewhat sultry manner. However, immediately afterward, Lin Xingyue seemed to have remembered something, so she once again looked at Zhou Tian and slowly opened her mouth. By the way, give me your hand. What's wrong? Zhou Tian was a bit puzzled, but still extended his hand. And in the next moment, Lin Xingyue directly grabbed Zhou Tian's hand and then took out her cell phone to take a picture. You need to stop pestering me. I have a favorite. We're going to get a room now. Lin Xingyue sent a photo of the two holding hands to a person, and the moment it was sent over, the other person's message came right back in seconds. First, there were 3 question marks, followed by a line of text that surfaced in front of Zhou Tian. Woman, you're playing with fire. Where are you? I'll come to you at once. Receiving the message, Lin Xingyue didn't even look at it and directly turned off her cell phone. Thank you, brother. This time I guess the other party can completely die. Lin Xingyue said very politely. It's okay. I'll put my travels in the hotel first, so just wait for me outside for a bit. Zhou Tian thought about it and said directly. Lin Xingyue's behavior just now was undoubtedly pouring dirty water on herself, but Zhou Tian didn't care. After all, in the end, Lin Xingyue had helped herself. Such a thing had no effect on Zhou Tian himself. Besides, Lin Xingyue was the administrator of the Compass Museum. If Zhou Tian promoted some relationship with her, he might be able to continue to whore out the parasites in the future. How can you do this? You can't bear to see your sister alone in the cold wind? Won't you let sister go up for a drink of water? Chapter 11 Gambling Stalls. Lin Xingyue blinked her slender eyelashes and straightened her plump capital again, looking at Zhou Tian with a hint of sultriness in her eyes. Zhou Tian glanced at it and swept a glance at the plumpness on Lin Xingyue's body, and the corner of his mouth curled up. Meh, it's just 2 tails of rotten meat. After saying these words, Zhou Tian walked towards the hotel without looking back. Only Lin Xingyue was left alone to stay where she was. At this moment, Lin Xingyue's entire body was confused. What? 2 tails of rotten meat? Hey, get it straight. What do you mean it's just too lousy? At least 4 tails well, Lin Xingyue said in a somewhat unconvincing manner. But this sentence Lin Xingyue didn't lie. To describe Lin Xingyue with 2 tails of rotten meat, that was indeed underestimating her. The pair was unfathomably plump. At least 4 too. Zhou Tian opened a room and laid directly on the large soft bed after putting his traveling gifts away. A sense of exhaustion lingered in Zhou Tian's heart, and he even wanted to just go to sleep and stop paying attention to Lin Xingyue outside. Forget it, it's still necessary to taking care of Lin Xingyue's emotions. After all, her utilization value is still not small. And, Zhou Tian thought darkly in his heart. Moreover, Zhou Tian kind of pitied Lin Xingyue. At a very old age, you still can't get married, and you don't even have a boyfriend, and seems to be out of his mind. It was already late fall, and it was already cool in Shanghai City, but Lin Xingyue was still wearing suspenders and black silk in the middle of the night, not respecting the season at all. Even if you're a compounder, you can't be so unafraid of the cold, can you? Zhou Tian walked down the stairs and at a glance, he saw Lin Xingyue standing next to a large tree. Seeing Zhou Tian appear, Lin Xingyue immediately waved towards Zhou Tian with an expression of immediate joy on her face. Seeing this, a somewhat speechless expression appeared on the surrounding faces. Let's go. Sister will take you shopping, Lin Xingyue said in a big way. Yeah. Zhou Tian also did not reject Lin Xingyue's good intentions and nodded his head. The duo arrived at the snack street and walked aimlessly through the place like the vast majority of couples do. Secret Realm Specialty. Regulus Divine Chicken. Don't miss it if you walk by. Mead. Half a yuan stone a bottle. Good price. Many food stalls were hawking. Among them were not only those ordinary snacks, but also some snacks made from ingredients in the secret realm. Zhou Tian. This Xian Yuan divine chicken sounds good. Let's try it, shall we? Lin Xingyue pulled Zhou Tian and looked towards the food stall that was selling Xian Yuan divine chicken. Zhou Tian glanced at the Regulus divine chicken sold at the food stall, which was similar to a roasted chicken, but much bigger, almost larger than an ostrich in size. Good. Zhou Tian nodded. He had never eaten Regulus divine chicken either, and wanted to taste what it really tasted like. The duo is here in line to purchase Regulus divine chicken. Suddenly, Lin Xingyue seemed to notice something good again. Zhou Tian, you stand in line here. I'll get some oranges over there. Lin Xingyue said that she was about to leave. Zhou Tian? No, you stand here and don't move. I'll get you some oranges. Zhou Tian took Lin Xingyue's hand and said seriously. Being pulled by Zhou Tian like this, Lin Xingyue instantly had a feeling of being flattered. Her mind couldn't help but recall the domineering novels she had once read, and there were quite a few of them that were based on the compassionate immortal. This is overbearing compulsive immortal compulsory love? Oh, I didn't even realize before that Zhou Tian was quite a man. Lin Xingyue couldn't help but think wildly. Naturally, she didn't know what Zhou Tian was thinking, nor did she know about the stunt of buying you an orange. Zhou Tian bypassed the crowd and crossed the road again, finally making his way to this orange stand. The oranges sold by the other party were also a specialty of the secret realm, and when taken, they could also boost a compassionate master's true essence. The selling price is also expensive. 1 yuan sure per box. After buying the oranges, Zhou Tian crossed the road again, bypassed the crowd, and came to Lin Xingyue's side. Try the orange. Zhou Tian handed the orange to Lin Xingyue, but Lin Xingyue shook her head and said, I want you to feed me. Listening to Lin Xingyue's words, Zhou Tian instantly felt a wave of speechlessness. Big sister, how old are you and you're asking me to feed you? Zhou Tian spat. I don't care, and don't forget, you still owe me 500 yuan stones. Lin Xingyue said with a haughty look on her lips. All right. Zhou Tian was very speechless in his heart. I treat you like a daughter, and you try to plot against me? These oranges are quite tasty. You have one too. Lin Xingyue picked up a petal of orange and shoved it towards Zhou Tian's mouth. Zhou Tian ate one, and Lin Xingyue picked up another petal and shoved it towards Zhou Tian's mouth. Zhou Tian took another bite, but Lin Xingyue's movements did not stop at all. I'll have enough for two. They're all yours. Zhou Tian continued. Well, that's nice of you. At this time, the queue finally reached Zhou Tian and Lin Xingyue. The duo bought some meat cubes made by the Regulus divine chicken and ate them while continuing their aimless stroll. By the way, didn't you injure Li Erlong before? You have to be careful. His brother Li Daolong is a third-turn compass master. Lin Xingyue coldly said to Zhou Tian. Aha. Zhou Tian nodded. Previously, Li Erlong had taken the initiative to provoke himself, and Zhou Tian had no choice but to just kill back. However, at school, Zhou Tian couldn't actually kill Li Erlong, which left a hidden danger. As for the other side's brother, Dalin Li, he was also a real threat, but not a big one. But don't worry, you're covered by your sister, who is at the peak of the second turn. Lin Xingyue said with great confidence. Well, you're the best. Zhou Tian complimented with a clear conscience. The cultivation of the peak of the second revolution was also definitely the mainstay of this world, and when put into some families, it was almost the level of a family elder. By the way, what's your next direction of cultivation? Are you thinking of taking the path of Zeus? Lin Xingyue spoke again. Previously, Zhou Tian had exchanged a time-stop compass at the Compass Museum, and combined it with Zhou Tian's previous spring and autumn cicada. Jean let Lin Xingyue guess that Zhou Tian's next direction of cultivation would most likely be towards the Tao of Zeus. Pretty much, depending on what happens later. Zhou Tian thought about it and said directly. It was not up to Zhou Tian to cultivate in exactly which direction, because obtaining every compulsion requires a right place, right time, and right person. Simply put, whatever compulsion there is, practice towards that law. Zhou Tian knew of one Yen Dao compass immortal, and although she had become a compass immortal, she did not have any Yen Dao compasses. One day, she accidentally got the force compulsion. After thinking for a moment, this Yen Dao compass immortal immediately chose to switch cultivation, abandoning the Yen Dao and choosing the force Dao. Well, Aegis compasses are not easy to obtain, so I advise you to follow your sister's example and cultivate force. Hey, Zhou Tian, look what's in front of you. Lin Xingyue suddenly pulled Zhou Tian's arm and said with some excitement. As Zhou Tian took a look, he was also a bit surprised, because in front, surprisingly, there was a gambling stall. Chapter 12, Robbery? Zhou Tian saw Lin Xingyue's gaze, and his eyebrows instantly couldn't help but raise. because up ahead, there was a gambling stall. The nature of the gambling stalls and the gambling grounds was similar, both selling starstones. The starstone was an extremely special stone that was conceived after the parasites fell into dormancy, and it was possible to obtain various parasites by opening the starstone. Only gambling stone. The most important thing is this word gambling. Want to open a powerful compote is simply 1 in a million. Did these starstones come from the secret realm as well? Zhou Tian inquired. Although he had the original owner's memories, Zhou Tian was only a student and definitely did not know this world as well as Lin Xingyue. That's right, there are all sorts of parasites stored in these starstones, and I've heard that some time ago, there was a particularly lucky person who opened a third-turned parasite, the mangy earth toad compass, from inside a gambling stone. Zhou Tian, let's buy a few starstones as well, and see if we can open a compass. Lin Xingyue pulled Zhou Tian's arm, her face overflowing with excitement. Yeah, Zhou Tian thought about it and didn't refuse. Zhou Tian didn't have a luck compulsion, and his own luck wasn't good either. He didn't expect to get any compulsions from gambling on stones, purely as a way to pass the time. However, Lin Xingyue's emotions were very high, and she was very excited to find the boss to buy the 6 starstones. Lin Xingyue kept 3 pieces and gave the remaining 3 to Zhou Tian. In the compulsion world there existed all kinds of compotes, and compotes were also living beings that naturally needed food, and if no food can be found, the parasite will fall into dormancy and seal itself. The power of the compulsion does not disappear at this time, but instead forms crystals on the exterior to isolate it from the outside world, and with the passage of time, this layer of sleep will gradually absorb the stone sinking and eventually form a block of stone. Breaking open these stones will make it possible to obtain the compulsion. Both of you, let me decipher the stone for you. A tall man, smiling, said to Lin Xingyue and Zhou Tian. Good. Zhou Tian nodded and directly gave the man the starstone. Some people rely on gambling stones to be able to unlock powerful compotes that can change their destiny in a single flight. But Zhou Tian didn't hold out much hope. These starstones couldn't see what was actually inside without a specialized scouting compulsion. Probably the vast majority of them are actually just ordinary rocks. The man utilized the power of the compulsion to keep chipping away at the appearance of the gambling stone. The first thing he solved was Lin Xingyue's 3 stones, very skillfully solving all 3. But in the end, there was nothing inside the stone. Oops, what bad luck. We can only see if your starstone can open something, Lin Xingyue said with some irritation. I believe in your luck, Zhou Tian responded flatly. Next, the man began to solve the remaining 3 starstones, and just as he was solving the first starstone, his eyes instantly revealed a shocked expression. There are parasites in here. Hearing the man's words, a hint of joy instantly appeared in Lin Xingyue's eyes. Quite a few people at this moment also all surrounded over want to see inside. In the end is what compulsion. Along with the man's movements, the gambling stone got thinner and thinner, soon revealing what was inside. This is the first turn yang qi compass. When the originally rough gambling stone was being left with a crystal clear compote, the man's face immediately said with excitement. A first turn yang qi compass was worth at least 200 yuan stones. Little brother, yang qi compulsion belongs to the auxiliary compulsion, but the effect is superb. Especially for our men it is even more counterintuitive, especially since it can be combined with the yin qi compass in the back to become a yin-yang transmutation compass. 200 yuan stones. I'm willing to acquire this parasite of yours. The man spoke to Zhou Tian with a hint of anticipation in his eyes. Zhou Tian couldn't help but curl the corner of his mouth as he listened to the man's words. Surprisingly, it's a yang qi compulsion. The yang qi compass is only a first turn compulsion, and it is very simple to feed. It only needs to be fed in the sun. Zhou Tian, this yang qi compass is not bad. Why don't you keep it? Lin Xingyue was also a bit excited. This purchase of gambling stones consumed a total of 6 yuan stones. However, he had exchanged it for a yang qi compass worth 200 yuan stones, and this wave was not a loss at all. Ascending and refining into a yin-yang transmutation compass. That would be very useful to me indeed. Zhou Tian nodded his head and took the compost directly from the man's hand. The parasites in the gambling stone were very weak, and Zhou Tian was able to directly refine them without the pressure of the spring and autumn cicada. Seeing that Zhou Tian had refined the yang qi compass, an expression of regret instantly appeared on the man's face. Don't look at Zhou Tian's awakening of the immortal compass. But in fact, geniuses like Zhou Tian were still extremely few. Most people, in fact, awaken only a first or second turn compulsion. There are even a number of people who have no qualifications and can only be mortals. Zhou Tian, let's not buy a few more starstones, Lin Xingyue said expectantly. Forget it, we'll buy it next time. Let's go shopping somewhere else. Zhou Tian rejected Lin Xingyue's idea. Zhou Tian felt very good when he was able to get the yang qi compass this time. and he did not think that he would be able to open any other compasses. Okay. Lin Xingyue was a little lost at first, but once she thought that she could continue shopping later, a smile appeared on her face. Time is a strange thing. Sometimes it passes slowly, but sometimes it passes quickly. Soon it was the early hours of the morning. Zhou Tian wanted to go back to the hotel to rest. Lin Xingyue was reluctant to send Zhou Tian home. How could this Zhou Tian allow it? He could already see that Lin Xingyue, an old aunt in her 20s, had already relied on himself. If she let her drive herself home, hell knows what would happen. Unable to do anything about it, Zhou Tian could only send Lin Xingyue home first. Lin Xingyue's home wasn't far from here, and the two of them walked on the side of the road, the streetlight shining on Lin Xingyue's body. It made her already fair skin even more lustrous at the moment. Soon, Zhou Tian arrived at the entrance of Lin Xingyue's neighborhood. I'm going back. I have class tomorrow. Zhou Tian said to Lin Xingliang. Why don't you go upstairs and get a glass of water before you go? By the way, try out your newly acquired Yang Qi compass. Lin Xingyue was still a little bit in love with her. Making a final hold. Forget it. I'm afraid you'll eat me, Zhou Tian said in a serious manner. No way. How could my sister be such a person? Lin Xingyue beamed and said with a defiant face. After chatting with Lin Xingyue for a while longer, she finally gave up on the idea of letting Zhou Tian go upstairs for a glass of water, and walked towards the neighborhood with a grumpy face. Looking at Lin Xingyue's back as she left, Zhou Tian shook his head helplessly. After seeing Lin Xingyue completely disappear in front of Zhou Tian's eyes, the expression on his face instantly changed, leaving behind nothing but ice coldness. Come on out. You've been following me for so long. You don't really want to go home with me? Zhou Tian coldly looked at the distant shadows. As soon as Zhou Tian's words fell, several big men instantly jumped out from the shadows. Kid, I didn't realize you were quite alert. Hand over the parasites on your body, or I'll kill you. Chapter 13, stepping into the first turn middle stage. Oh, you guys wanna rob my Yang Qi compass? Zhou Tian was a bit surprised. Yang Qi compasses were only auxiliary type compasses, and their value wasn't too high. However, Zhou Tian did not expect that there would still be someone who wanted to rob his compulsion. Cut the crap. I'm at the peak of the first turn. Obediently hand over the parasites and yuan stones, and I can still save your life, the man immediately said, taking out a knife in his hand as he did so. Seeing this scene, Zhou Tian instantly laughed. How can you use a knife for a robbery these days? It's not embarrassing enough to talk about it. However, Zhou Tian could also tell that the man should be in his 30s or 40s. There was only one reason why a 30 or 40-year-old compass master was still only at the peak of his first turn. That's too low a qualification. It's likely that it's only a dequalification, and the fact that the other guy robbed them with a knife, rather than choosing to use a compulsion, tells you a little bit more about why. That is, he has no offensive compulsions. Thinking of this, Zhou Tian's eyes became even more contemptuous as he looked at this man, and seemingly sensing Zhou Tian's gaze, the man instantly became enraged. What are you looking at me for? One more look and I'll gouge your eyes out, the man threatened again. What a stupid enough thing to do. Since you're looking for death, I'll fulfill you, Zhou Tian said with a cold snort, then immediately activated the time stop compass. Zhou Tian's time stop compass effect was extremely perverse, capable of stagnating the surrounding time to a great extent. The man in front of him was only a first-turn compassion master, which meant that he was simply unable to resist Zhou Tian's time stop compassion. The moment Zhou Tian activated the time stop compulsion, the man's movements became extremely slow. Zhou Tian stepped forward and kicked him over. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Just you also deserve to rob. Also do not take a piss to see what you look like, Zhou Tian said and gave another explosive kick. The man's breath grew fainter and fainter as a gurgling scream accompanied it. Please don't fight. I know I'm wrong, the man begged bitterly, completely lacking his previous arrogance. Get the hell out of here. Zhou Tian stopped his movements and said in a cold voice. The man braced himself to get up and slowly backed toward his back, but just in a flash of lightning, the man instantly activated the true essence in his body, and a green light emerged from the center of his hand. You made me do it. Blue and silver compulsion. The man urged the compulsion and immediately attacked towards Zhou Tian. A vine instantly shot out from the center of his hand, swiftly coming towards Zhou Tian. Hearing the words blue-silver compass, Zhou Tian instantly frowned. Damn, you're given a chance and you don't take it, so go to hell. Zhou Tian couldn't hold back completely. Previously, Zhou Tian had wanted to spare this man's life. However, he did not expect that the other party would not only be insensitive, but would even try to make a move against Zhou Tian. The moment Zhou Tian's words fell, the time around him quickly became slow. Zhou Tian took this opportunity to kick the compost in his hand over, then went up and punched him. This time Zhou Tian did not show any mercy and waited until the man completely lost his breath before Zhou Tian stopped. This was the first time Zhou Tian had killed a man in pain, but there was no fear. Instead, there was some excitement. Bloody hell! Zhou Tian was irritated for a while, and only left after seeing that the other party did not pose any threat. After Zhou Tian left, the man who had originally completely lost his breath slowly stood up at this moment. Damn it! This person's compulsion is just too strange to make me completely unresponsive. If I didn't possess the convergence compass, or else I would really die in his hands. When have I, Huang Sangue, ever been wronged like this? You wait and see, Huang Sangue said angrily in his heart. Although Huang Sangue was beaten up miserably just now, he also noticed the school uniform Zhou Tian was wearing. From there, he was able to determine Zhou Tian's identity as a student of the Zhanghai City's No. 1 Compassion Master Academy, a first-turn compass master. Zhou Tian returned to the hotel and sat on the floor after taking a shower. Accompanying Lin Xingyue on her shopping trip made Zhou Tian feel very physically exhausted, especially since he had also violently beaten up Huang Sangue in the end. However, Zhou Tian still braced himself and attempted to cultivate. Zhou Tian closed his eyes, and the scene within the empty orifices immediately appeared before his eyes. The empty orifices were filled with emerald green true essence, while the walls of the empty orifices were very smooth membranes of light. The first stage of the aperture is a light membrane. The middle stage of the aperture is a water membrane. The higher stage of the aperture is an ice membrane. And the pinnacle will become a crystal membrane. Zhou Tian controlled the true essence within his body to flush the walls of the orifices, and each stroke made the light membrane smoother. Whenever the light film turned into a water film, Zhou Tian would also be able to step into the middle stage. Zhou Tian cultivated for an hour this time, and instantly felt a rupture in the light membrane of his empty orifice. The light film shatters to form a water film, and I'll be able to ascend to the middle stage of the first turn. Zhou Tian was bursting with joy. This was the terror of the 10 extremities body. Cultivating it was as simple as eating and drinking. It would take at least several days for an A-class qualification to break through to the middle rank. Class B is much longer and takes up to 10 days. And if C and D want to break through, it will take at least a few months. There's still 50% of true essence in the body. Let's see if we can break through to the middle rank, Zhou Tian thought in his heart. And then he became more attentive in controlling his true essence to flush the empty orifices. Although the higher the cultivation level, the easier it would be for the 10 extinction body to self-destruct. However, the resources gained from an increase in strength were also greater. Zhou Tian had to raise his strength as soon as possible and then purchase more compasses. Now there's a young comp. All that was needed was to obtain the Yin-Chi compass again, as well as the compulsion formula for the Yin-Yang transmutation compass, and then the compulsion could be refined directly. And with the Yin-Yang transmutation compass, it meant that Zhou Tian had 2 more lives. After spending another 3 hours, the true essence in Zhou Tian's body was completely exhausted. However, a burst of condensed splendor aura haunted Zhou Tian, and a smile instantly appeared on Zhou Tian's face. First turn middle stage. After stepping into the first turn middle stage, Zhou Tian glanced at the time. It was now 5 in the morning. School started at 7 o'clock, and Zhou Tian did not choose to continue sleeping. Instead, they went out for breakfast and then came to class early. Plopping down on his exclusive seat, Zhou Tian fell into a deep sleep. With the passage of time, the rest of the class arrived and the sexy female teacher walked in. The teacher propped his hands on the podium, one hand still holding a yuan stone, and then slowly opened his mouth immediately afterward. Class is in session. Today we'll teach you how to absorb the natural true essence from the yuan stones. Hearing the teacher's words, the students took out a true element from their bodies and listened intently to the teacher's words. Next, hold your breath and mobilize a trace of true essence to inject into the yuan stone. Then introduce the true essence inside into the empty aperture. It's everyone's first time, so try closing your eyes so you can concentrate more, the teacher said slowly. The crowd of students nodded at the teacher's words and then closed their eyes. The teacher's face showed a hint of relief when he saw how cooperative the students were. But immediately afterward, the teacher's eyes went to the last row. In the corner, a student is huffing and puffing. Hey, which student is this? Why is he sleeping in the first period? The teacher spoke with some confusion, which instantly attracted everyone's attention. Chapter 14 Robbing Yuan Sure again. It's Zhou Tian. Is it hard to completely swing for the fences this Sunday? Sleeping in the first class? Oh, it's just trash. It's really a disgrace to our class. Yes, I was even robbed of 2 yuan stones by her yesterday. You have to back me up. Teacher. That's right. This Zhou Tian is too detestable. I suggest that he be expelled straight away. The rest of the class got more and more excited. It couldn't be helped. Zhou Tian's behavior was so bad that he even tried to rob his fellow classmates of their yuan sure. So it's Zhou Tian. The teacher nodded when she heard Zhou Tian's name. She slowly walked down the podium and finally stopped in front of Zhou Tian. It made all the students couldn't help but be excited. Ha ha, Zhou Tian is in trouble this time. Our teacher Li is a famous tigress. That's right, it's not a good idea to sleep at any time this weekday, but only in Mr. Li's class. How should the teacher punish Zhou Tian? It's best to just kick him out of the classroom. And just about everyone was watching. Teacher Li slowly took off his jacket and draped it directly over Zhou Tian's body. This Zhou Tian is really something too, wearing so little and not afraid of catching a cold. Mr. Li's mouth whispered. But this kind of behavior is puzzling for all the students. Originally, they thought that Zhou Tian sleeping in class would make Mr. Li angry, but to his surprise, Teacher Li took the initiative to put on Zhou Tian's clothes, fearing that Zhou Tian would catch a cold. Classmates, perhaps you don't know that Zhou Tian has already stepped into the first turn middle stage. Mr. Li returned to the podium and slowly addressed everyone. And once again, her words startled everyone. How is this possible? Zhou Tian shouldn't have stepped into the middle stage so quickly even if he is a 10 extreme body. Teacher, are you looking at it wrong? How can this Zhou Tian be at the middle stage of the first turn? Damn it, I haven't even cultivated yet. But Zhou Tian is already at the middle stage of the first turn. Most of the students were questioning Mr. Li's words, but Mr. Li shook his head. Zhou Tian has indeed stepped into the middle stage of the first turn for real. And it's obvious that he practiced all night yesterday. People may know that the cultivation speed of the 10 extremities body is far beyond normal people, but they don't know that the 10 extremities body's lifespan is barely more than a few months, and that if they don't become a compass immortal, they will become flying ashes. From this, we can see that Zhou Tian is trying very hard to survive, and this is something that everyone should learn from. Mr. Li said again. Hearing this, all the students fell silent. The 10 Jedi body was indeed good, and its cultivation speed far exceeded that of normal people. But the price, a short life. The eyes of the other students looking at Zhou Tian instantly turned pitiful. Even if you step into the middle stage. So what? I don't believe you can really become a compass immortal, a student whispered. Alright, everyone, now go ahead and try to absorb the Yuan stones. Mr. Li said again. With Teacher Li's words, everyone's attention was no longer placed on Zhou Tian, and they all concentrated on absorbing the Yuan stone. The minutes ticked by. Soon it was time for school to end at noon. Zhou Tian got up and stretched his arms lazily. School's out and it's time to get back to business. Zhou Tian immediately thought in his heart, but immediately after, Zhou Tian suddenly realized that something was wrong. For over himself, surprisingly, a woman's jacket was draped. Yes, who draped the clothes over me? Zhou Tian looked at the beige jacket in his hand and was puzzled for a moment. What? It's getting cold. Can't I put a shirt on you? Just at this moment, a voice with a hint of grudge reached Zhou Tian's ears. Zhou Tian turned his head and immediately saw his teacher's appearance. Thank you, teacher. I practiced too late yesterday and accidentally fell asleep today. Zhou Tian returned the clothes to the teacher and said politely, It's okay, why don't you come with me to my office? There's something I want to ask you. Mr. Li spoke again. To the office? No, I have some other things to take care of. Teacher, wait for me in the office. I'll be back soon. Zhou Tian said and directly walked out towards the outside of the classroom. He could still have to go earn Yuan stones now, so how could he possibly waste his time on his teacher? Hey, wait. Teacher Li still wanted to block it, but just in the twinkling of an eye Zhou Tian disappeared. Seeing this, Mr. Li could only sigh helplessly. What a pain in the ass. After Zhou Tian left, Ms. Li also got up and twisted her sexy waist to return to the office. The other side, Zhou Tian also arrived at the school entrance in the fastest time possible. Luckily, Zhou Tian was fast enough, or else the other students would have finished walking, and then Zhou Tian wouldn't be able to earn yuan. Sure. Zhou Tian was still waiting at the entrance of the school, waiting for his classmates to show up. Soon, Zhou Tian locked onto the target. A group of girls hugged their way out of the school entrance, and when they saw Zhou Tian, their footsteps immediately stopped. Zhou Tian, what are you doing standing here? Is it possible that you still want to rob our yuan stones? The short-haired girl pouted. So smart. Obediently hand over the yuan stone. Zhou Tian wore a smirking expression on his face. You're too bullying, even robbing our girls of their yuan stones. The short-haired girl said accusingly. It's fine if you don't want to pay the yuan stone. Let me spank your ass 10 times and I'll let you go. Zhou Tian thought about it and gave the short-haired girl a chance. You, denizen. The short-haired girl immediately covered her skirt, her face red with anger. Unable to do so, they had no choice but to honestly pay the yuan sure and leave. As for the men, there were still some unconvinced ones who didn't want to hand over the yuan sure to Zhou Tian. Treating them, Zhou Tian was also very simple. Beating them up would make them honest. Inside the security booth, A group of security guards murmured, "Brother Lei, this Zhou Tian robbing other students of their yuan stones. Should we go and stop it?" A young security guard said with some exasperation. "Stop it? Stop with what? They're all parasites and we're just mortals. Just do what you're supposed to do and don't get yourself in trouble." And Zhou Tian moved outside the school. It's not like he was inside the school. There's only one thing we need to do, and that's to send the injured students to the infirmary. The older security guard immediately reprimanded. The most important thing about being a human being is to recognize your own position. These students are small, but all of them are composters, and they were just ordinary people who couldn't afford to mess with the compounder. Though it was not like the compassion realm, where compass masters had a noble status and mortals were at the mercy of others, but ordinary mortals also simply didn't dare to mess with a compass master, especially a powerful one. The weak are the strongest, and the weak can only become mole crickets. I know Brother Lei, but this Zhou Tian is really infuriating. How dare he completely disregard the feelings of his classmates? The young security guard was still indignant. What do you know? I've been reading Three Kingdoms lately, and it says in there that those who accomplish great things don't sweat the small stuff. I feel that this Zhou Tian is bound to be a lord in the future. The older guard said with a preachy look. Later? There's no telling which woman that will be cheaper. The young security guard said thoughtfully. Hearing this, the older security guard's face flared with anger and he immediately picked up his hat and smacked the younger security guard. What are you thinking? I said later. Not the verb you said. Chapter 15, The Secret Realm of White Bone Mountain. The last student honestly took the 2 yuan stones to Zhou Tian. Getting another 200 yuan stones? That's great. The corners of Zhou Tian's mouth curled up slightly. His face pleased. After these 2 days of hard work, Zhou Tian's yuan stone had already broken the 600 mark. Zhou Tian, this is my yuan stone. Give it to you. Just then, Yanran Lu suddenly walked over. She took a money bag in her hand and handed it directly to Zhou Tian. Zhou Tian naturally wouldn't be polite and opened the money bag immediately seeing the 40 yuan stones inside. I wish everyone could be as generous as Yanran Lu. Zhou Tian sighed in his heart. Zhou Tian, I've been a little confused about my cultivation lately. Can you guide me? Yanran Lu said to Zhou Tian. Yes, but I'm going to look for my teacher first, so go wait for me at the hotel. Zhou Tian thought about it and did not reject it, but directly gave the room card to Yanran Lu. Hotels. When Yanran Lu heard Zhou Tian's words, her cheeks instantly blushed slightly. However, Zhou Tian did not give Lu Yanyan the chance to refuse, and gave the room card to Lu Yanyan, while he himself walked towards the inside of the school. I wonder what Mr. Li wants to see me about. Zhou Tian came to the office door and muttered a little in his heart. Is it hard to chastise yourself for sleeping? But Zhou Tian felt that this was not too likely. Taking a long breath, Zhou Tian knocked on the office door. Come in, Mr. Li's voice came from the room. Zhou Tian pushed open the door and walked straight in. As a classroom teacher, Ms. Li has her own separate office. Moreover, Mr. Li's own strength wasn't weak, being a third-turn compassion master. As soon as he entered the door, Zhou Tian saw Mr. Li sitting at the desk. Here we go. How many yuan stones did you grab this time? Mr. Li opened his mouth, and the atmosphere, which was still somewhat tense, instantly became soothing. 200 pieces, Zhou Tian said honestly. You don't lie. The principal knows about this, but it's okay. The teacher squashed it for you. Consider it compensation from the school. Mr. Li said again. According to Zhou Tian originally getting the qualification, it was possible to be the same as Yanran Lu, 50 yuan stones per day. However, because Zhou Tian had refined the spring and autumn cicada, he became a waste in everyone's eyes. This led to the elimination of the subsidy. However, Zhou Tian didn't stop there. Since the school didn't give it, he would grab it from other students. This world was all about the weak and the strong, and the moment they became a companion, their identity changed. Companions are above ordinary people, and as long as they don't go too far, they won't be officially punished. Then thank you teacher. I just wonder what teacher is looking for me for this time. Zhou Tian directly asked the doubts in his heart. Well, there's only one thing. I want you to take the first place in the next test. Teacher Li's pair of beautiful eyes gazed at Zhou Tian and said in a very serious manner. Take first place? Zhou Tian muttered, not agreeing or outright refusing. Yes, do you know the homeroom teacher of class 3? She's been too arrogant lately, relying on the fact that Yanran Lu has refined the Hongyun Chitian compass. She's not putting me in her eyes at all. Ms. Li pouted. Zhou Tian nodded, sensing an aura of gossip. Do I get anything for taking first place? Zhou Tian thought about it and asked directly in return. Of course I have. If you'll let me take the heat and squash the anger of the third grade teacher, I can give you a pass. A pass to the White Bone Mountain secret realm. Mr. Li said. regarding the pass that Mr. Lee was talking about. Zhou Tian did not know what it was, yet he knew what White Bone Mountain was. This was the first place in the compulsion realm that the great love Immortal had come to when he left the ancient moon cottage. It was filled with all kinds of bone beasts, and it also possessed an inheritance. If one could obtain this inheritance, one would be able to obtain the third turn compulsion, the bone and flesh reunion compass. Teacher Lee could see Zhou Tian's doubts and then immediately opened his mouth to explain. This is a newly emerged secret realm that only very few people know about at the moment. According to the speculations of the Compass Immortals, the secret realm officially opens next month. You should also know the difference between a secret realm and a secret realm. Some old secret realms have almost been exploited. While scary secret realms are difficult to explore, this White Bone Mountain secret realm isn't too difficult and hasn't been exploited yet. It's just right for you, and you might be able to search for a solution to the 10 extinct bodies. After saying this, Teacher Lee gazed at Zhou Tian, trying to see what expression Zhou Tian had. However, Zhou Tian's face did not have any expression fluctuation and remained so cloudy. Other people didn't know, but Zhou Tian was well aware of this White Bone Mountain secret realm. The resources inside were indeed abundant, and if Zhou Tian was lucky enough, he could even obtain the bone and flesh reunion compass. This was a compulsion that was capable of dual cultivation, and if Zhou Tian could possess it, it could greatly increase his cultivation speed. And besides this compulsion, there were also a large number of healing as well as attacking compulsion. But there was no compulsion that could resolve the 10 extinct bodies. Although this White Bone Mountain secret realm can't solve my 10 extinct bodies, the value it contains isn't small, especially since it also contains an inheritance, Zhou Tian thought in his heart. Thinking of this, Zhou Tian had already made a decision and once again looked at Teacher Lee. I promise, Zhou Tian said flatly, and upon hearing Zhou Tian's words, Mr. Lee's face was instantly delighted. Good, then it's a deal. I'll wait for your good news. Leaving the office, Zhou Tian's heart was still in thought. The White Bone Mountain is filled with all sorts of bone monsters in addition to legacies, and only by stepping into the third turn is it possible to defend oneself. That means that within a month I'll step into at least the third turn, Zhou Tian secretly thought in his heart. But this again made Zhou Tian difficult. If one stepped into the third turn, it would be extremely easy for Zhou Tian to self-destruct. Therefore, before stepping into the third turn, Zhou Tian had to obtain the yin-yang transmutation compass in advance. Even if he couldn't obtain the yin-yang transmutation compass, then he still had to obtain the stone trick compass. Hey, one must earn yuan stones as soon as possible. Zhou Tian felt a wave of helplessness in his heart and gradually walked back to the hotel. In the hotel, Yan Ranlu was still waiting for herself. I don't know if Yan Ranlu came, Zhou Tian thought in his heart. The reason why Zhou Tian was so close to Yan Ranlu actually had another layer of purpose. Yan Ranlu was also a 10 extreme body, a fate like her own. And while the school might watch itself blow up, there was absolutely no way it would watch Yan Ranlu blow up. In other words, it was very likely that Yan Ranlu would be able to obtain a solution to the 10 extinction body. Not to mention the fact that it's easier for her to live when her luck is at its peak. Walking to the door of the room, Zhou Tian gently knocked on the door. Zhou Tian, wait for me. I'm taking a shower. An instant later, from the room came Yan Ranlu's voice. In the shower? Zhou Tian was a bit surprised and couldn't help but think in his heart. Can it be that this Yan Ranlu is also impure? She wants to plot against herself? But immediately after that, Zhou Tian realized something. The Hongluk Chi Tian compass was a disposable compulsion that disappeared after Yan Ranlu refined it. However, if Lu Yanyan was used as the compulsion material, then it would be possible to reversely refine the Hongyun Chi Tian compulsions. Chapter 16, Returning to the Gambling Stall. The moment this thought was born, Zhou Tian couldn't help but admire himself for being a talented person. The idea is potentially realizable, but not right now. Zhou Tian was only a first-turn compass master now, and at most, he could only refine second-turn compasses. And if one wanted to reverse train the Hongluk Chi Tian compass, one would have to become at least a peak fifth-turn compass master. And there is a failure rate in compulsion refining. Once it failed, Yan Ranlu, who was the compulsion material, would also be damaged. No, I have to get that thought out of my head, Zhou Tian immediately thought. He wasn't really a great love immortal exalt after all, and it was impossible for him to do something like using a person to refine a compulsion. What's more, Yan Ranlu now possessed great chi. Once Zhou Tian revealed his killing intent towards Yan Ranlu, then he would immediately suffer a backlash of chi. After about a few minutes, the door to the room opened. Yan was wearing the pajamas provided by the hotel. The pajamas were very loose, but they couldn't even hold back the beautiful body on Yan Ranlu. I didn't think you'd be back so soon, so I thought I'd take a shower first, Yan Ranlu said with embarrassment. At the moment, there were still undried drops of water in her hair. which made her look even more charming. Dry your hair first, don't catch a cold, Zhou Tian said casually. Yeah. Being so concerned by Zhou Tian, Yan Ranlu was instantly somewhat moved. Zhou Tian walked into the room. The whole room was very clean. It was obvious that it had been cleaned by the hotel ants before. All the bedding on it has been replaced with new ones. The weekday before was booked in a king room, which is the choice of many couples. But really, when you go to get a room, it's best to go for a double room rather than a king-size room. After all, in today's society, with its high level of technology, no one can guarantee that there are no cameras in the hotel. This is greatly avoided by high-end hotels plus double rooms. As for those small hotels plus Chingxiu rooms, staying in such places makes it easy to be live-streamed. Of course, Zhou Tian did not think of living with Yan Ranlu or Lin Qingyue. You've stepped into the middle rank as well? Zhou Tian looked Lin Qingyue up and down and immediately made a judgment based on the other party's aura. Hearing Zhou Tian's words, Lin Qingyue nodded slightly. Yes, an accidental breakthrough. With the 10 extreme body, even if you don't cultivate, your cultivation will increase. This is a good thing, but also a bad thing. Zhou Tian faced the possibility of his empty orifices being burst, the same way Yan Ranlu would also face this problem. What about the school? Is there a way to deal with it? Zhou Tian once again asked rhetorically. Yes, there are many ways that the school can address the problem of the 10 Jedi body. When I can't support myself, they can give me the stone trunk compass, or refine the 6-winged heavenly demon corpse compass and transform it into a zombie. On top of that, there's the yin and yang transmutation compulsion, the reincarnation compulsion and all that. With a thoughtful look, Yan Ranlu slowly said to Zhou Tian. Listening to the other party's words, Zhou Tian nodded slightly. These approaches were almost similar to Zhou Tian's perception, but each compulsion had a corresponding cost, especially the reincarnation compulsion, which was a 5-turn humane compulsion. When used, it allows the compounder to go back to the basics, go through the October pregnancy again, and then live another life. In fact, Zhou Tian had another way to solve the disadvantages of the 10 extinct body. That was to directly utilize the Shelley compass to rapidly increase one's strength to the 5th turn, and then forcibly cross the threshold to become a compassion immortal. But this method requires far too much underpinning. Not only did it require a large amount of Sherpa compasses, but it also required a complete set of 5 turns compasses. Moreover, the chances of success were extremely low, and without great fortune, one could never succeed. If what Yan Ranlu possessed was the 8 revolutions Hongyun Chi Tian compass, then Zhou Tian felt that the other party could definitely succeed in doing so. But unfortunately, her Han Luck Chi Tian compass only had 6 revolutions, so there was still a possibility of failure. Because in addition to having to deal with the problem of self-destructing at any time, the 10 extremities body would also have to deal with calamities dozens of times more terrifying than ordinary compass immortals when they became immortals. If you can get the yin-yang transmutation compass, remember to share one with me. Zhou Tian flirted with a sentence. The yin-yang turning compass was almost the best solution to the 10 extinct bodies' self-destruction. The yin compulsion is reborn once, and the yang compulsion is reborn again. These 2 chances to reach the 5th turn of cultivation if nothing goes wrong. When the time came to put up a fight and directly cross the threshold to become an immortal, the chances of success would be greater. Of course there's no problem. Without the slightest hesitation, Yan Ranlu immediately said. But immediately afterward, Yan Ranlu's cheeks were slightly flushed. Because the first time Yan Ranlu used the yin-yang transmutation compass, she had to use the yang compass. That means she'll become a man. Zhou Tian, on the other hand, could only use yin compulsion, thus turning into a woman. The 2 people's genders were directly switched. Thinking about this, Lu Yanyan couldn't help but feel a little perverted. Thinking about what? Seeing this expression on Yan Ranlu's face, Zhou Tian was instantly able to guess that she must be thinking the wrong way. After all, women are always up to all sorts of wacky ideas when it comes to things like this. And your chi is superb, so you may be able to obtain other ways. There's no need to cling to the school's arrangement. Zhou Tian said again. Aha, too, Yan Ran said. With Lu Yanyan's current chi, she might be able to find a perfect solution to the 10 extinct bodies at some point. After Yan Ranlu finished her sentence, Zhou Tian did not say anything more. The atmosphere in the room became quiet at that moment. Want to go out shopping? A moment later, Yan Ranlu once again broke the awkwardness of the atmosphere. Shopping? Zhou Tian thought of last night, the scene with Lin Qingyue. Yeah, I heard that the latest gambling stall opened near the school, and I'm so lucky that I might be able to open a good compote. Yan Ranlu continued. Listening to Yan Ranlu's words, Zhou Tian nodded slightly, but he couldn't help but smile a little bitterly in his heart. Just yesterday, he accompanied Lin Qingyue to a gambling stall. I didn't realize that I would have to go again with Yan Ranlu so soon. Good. Zhou Tian thought about it and still agreed to Yen Ranlu's words. Yen Ranlu was right before. She was very lucky and could definitely open a good compulsion. But the gambling stall was just this big. Even if Yen Ranlu was lucky, she wouldn't necessarily be able to open an extremely precious compote. If you really want to open a precious compote, you still have to go to some of the bigger gambling parlors. Well, then, I'll change first. Seeing Zhou Tian's promise, a trace of joy instantly appeared on Yen Ranlu's face, but it quickly became an initiative. Although Zhou Tian had said that he wanted Yen Ranlu to give her body in return, and Yen Ranlu had also agreed, but after all, the relationship between the two hadn't reached that point yet, so it was naturally impossible to change clothes in front of Zhou Tian. No problem, I'll go out and wait for you, Zhou Tian said directly. Although Lu Yanyan was very pretty and had a good figure, he wasn't going to take advantage of Lu Yanyan at this time. In other words, if Zhou Tian really wanted to do something, Yen Ranlu wouldn't be able to escape at all. Zhou Tian walked out of the hotel and waited at the entrance for Zhou Tian to come out. Soon, Yen Ranlu changed her clothes and walked out. Zhou Tian, do you think I look pretty today? Yen Ranlu blinked her slender eyelashes and said with an expectant face. Of course you're pretty. You're a real school beauty at school, Zhou Tian said without hiding anything at all. Thanks for the compliment. What compulsion do you want? And with my luck, I might be able to open it for you? Lin Xingyin looked at Zhou Tian's eyes and once again asked. Well, I want the compulsion of the Way of Fortune, or the Way of Zuodo. Chapter 17. Zhou Tian spoke out the two types of parasites he wanted the most, because Zhou Tian knew very well that with Lu Yanyan's luck, there was a real possibility that he could open it for himself. Well, if I do open it, how would you like to thank me? Yen Ranlu guffawed, revealing her two small tiger teeth. Looking into Zhou Tian's eyes, he asked with great anticipation, how would you like me to thank you? Zhou Tian asked meaningfully in return. Well, let's see. I can't think of anything at the moment, so forget it. I'll wait until I do later, Yen Ran said. Just as the two were chatting, they arrived at the gambling stall. It's afternoon, and the gambling stalls aren't doing too well. The owner of the gambling stall saw Zhou Tian at a glance, and a hint of a smile appeared on his face. Immediately after looking at Lu Yanran next to her, the smile on her face instantly turned into jealousy. Damn, why is this kid so good with women? Yesterday, there was a royal beauty beside her, but today, it's good, and it's been replaced with an innocent beauty. The owner of the gambling stall couldn't help but spit in his heart. Why is there such a big difference between the same men? I'm 18 years old and ignore the risk and continue to install. But you're good. You're surrounded by beautiful women one after another. Little brother, come to gamble on stones. It just so happens that today another batch of starstones came in from the secret realm. The quality is absolutely good. Although he spat in his heart, on the surface the gambling stall owner still greeted him warmly. Well, come to gamble on the stones. But this time, let my friend pick it himself, Zhou Tian slowly said. Pick it out yourself? No problem, little girl. The gambling stones are all here. Pick them yourself. The bottom one is an ordinary starstone, priced at half a yuan stone. The top one is a high-quality starstone, priced at 1 yuan stone. And the top one is a premium starstone, priced at 10 yuan stones. The owner of the gambling stall greeted warmly. Yesterday, Zhou Tian and Lin Xingyue were the ones who purchased 6 ordinary starstones and opened the Yangqi compass. Well, let's see. Yen Ranlu looked these starstones up and down. In the end, Yen Ranlu's eyes went to the bottom. A gambling stone used to pad the corner of the table. Is this a starstone too? Yen Ranlu pointed at the piece and asked suspiciously. The owner of the gambling stall looked at it, and a bitter smile immediately appeared on his face. Little girl, this is also a starstone, only there are too many impurities, and I've come to use it as a stepping stone. Why don't you take a look at the other starstones? The probability of opening a compass is also higher. The owner of the gambling stall continued. The quality of this stepping stone was very low, and its appearance was no different from an ordinary stone. I'll take this one then. Boss, help me untie it. Yen Ranlu shook her head and said directly. Want this? That's fine. You can give half a starstone. The owner of the gambling stall was a bit helpless. In his heart, he also began to spit out Yen Ranlu. This little girl is quite pretty. Why is she so stingy? Not as generous as that imperial sister yesterday. They bought 6 at once, but you picked the most unimpressive one. The owner of the gambling stall took this starstone to the platform and urged his true essence to prepare to unravel it. At first, the owner of the gambling stall was a bit disdainful. The quality of this starstone was too low to open a compote. But just for a moment, the face of the owner of the gambling stall changed. It was because he violently sensed the presence of the compass within the starstone. Surprisingly, there really are parasites. It's hard for this little girl to be a real traitorous luck. The owner of the gambling stall was very shocked in his heart, and the movements of his hands were gentle. With the passage of time, the impurities on the surface of the starstone were slowly unraveled. Eventually, a crystal-clear compote was formed. This compulsion is the time and fortune compulsion. The owner of the gambling stall didn't recognize it at first, but when he took a good look at the parasite, his tone couldn't help but tremble. The time and fortune compass is a 3-transferring channel compulsion. The effect is simple, it is able to overdraw future chi. The more chi that was overdrawn, the stronger the chi that one gained. And again, the luckier you are now, the unluckier you will be later. Although the time and fortune compulsion was only an auxiliary type of compulsion, the selling price was at least 20,000 yuan stones. Looking at the time luck compass in his hand, the eyes of the gambling stall owner went straight. Damn it! With this fortune compass, why would I work so hard to sell gambling stones? Lay straight and flat, okay? Surprisingly, it's a third turn time and fortune compass. Great! Yan Ranlu also immediately recognized the name of the compulsion, and she directly pulled Zhou Tian's arm, revealing an excited expression. See, thanks to you, boss, give me the compost. Zhou Tian smiled faintly and directly tried to bring the compost over. However, the owner of the gambling stall directly took a step back, revealing a puzzled expression. This is clearly my compulsion, the owner of the gambling stall said angrily. You, boss, how can you do this? We all paid for it. Hearing the other party's words, Yan Ranlu was instantly anxious at this moment as well. She had never seen anyone so brazen. What money? Why don't I see it? Get lost or don't blame me for being rude. The owner of the gambling stall threw the half-yuan stone to the side with anger on his face. Just at this moment, from behind the boss, a few big men also walked past. One of these two men was around 50 years old, and the other was about the same age as the boss, and both of them had expressions on their faces that were not to be messed with, and stabbed through the breath judgment. In addition to this long, the rest of the two surprisingly are compulsion master, Zhou Tian. They're too bullying. Lu Yanyan looked at Zhou Tian aggressively, and was so angry that her eyes were on the verge of tears. It's simple, if they don't want to give it, let's just snatch it back. Zhou Tian kicked the table in front of him over, then activated the time stop compass and attacked directly towards the owner of the gambling stall. The power of the time stop compass came into play at this moment, and the surrounding time rapidly froze at this moment. The true essence in Zhou Tian's body was also beginning to rapidly deplete, affecting 3 compass masters at the same time. Such a depletion was simply too great. Fortunately, Zhou Tian was a 10 extinct body, and the true essence in his body was barely able to cope with the situation. Zhou Tian directly snatched the compulsion from the boss's hand before refining it in a matter of moments. After refining the parasites, Zhou Tian kicked his opponent down. Zhou Tian, watch out! Lin Qingyue's anxious voice came from the side, and immediately after that, Zhou Tian turned his head violently to find a large man shooting a blade of light towards him. Zhou Tian immediately dodged. Dealing with 3 companions at the same time, Zhou Tian's time-stopping compassion was unable to achieve the extreme pause time, and could at most only delay the time by 5 times. Good on! Just a moment after Zhou Tian dodged away from his opponent's attack, Yan Ranlu struck. A blade of light that extremely emitted a cold aura instantly struck towards the opponent, and this blade of light was accurately shot on the opponent's neck, and in just a moment, blood sprayed out as if it were no money. Father, how dare you kill father? I'll fight you. The other big man next to him instantly became furious and directly leapt up towards Yan Ranlu. I killed someone. Yan Ranlu's brain was blank at the moment. This was the first time she had killed someone, and at this moment, Zhou Tian's eyes were extremely cold, looking at the big man in front of him as if he was looking at a dead man. Just you deserve it. Go to hell. Zhou Tian directly blocked in front of Yan Ranlu, and under the effect of the time-stopping compulsion, this big man's movements were extremely slow. Without saying a word, Zhou Tian punched his opponent on the temple without any mercy. In an instant, the other party's breath dissipated and he completely collapsed to the ground. Chapter 18. I am the peak of the first turn. Zhou Tian had solved 2 compounders, while Yan Ranlu had solved 1. This all happened in just a moment, causing the people watching around them to show their shocked expressions, but they didn't leave. Instead they hid to watch the fun. Ordinary people couldn't get involved in a battle between compulsion masters, but it would be a good choice to witness a battle between compulsion masters. It's like an ancient beheading. The beheading at the food market will be watched by countless people. Although horrible and scary, the more such things happen, the more it will stimulate the hidden wildness in the human heart. Zhou Tian did all this without any expression on his face, and Yan Ranlu flung herself in Zhou Tian's arms in fear. It was her first kill, although it was the other party who initiated the provocation. the nature did not change. Zhou Tian, what should I do? I killed someone. Yanran Lu was so aggrieved that she was on the verge of crying. Zhou Tian did not say anything, but patted her back. The reason why Yanran Lu did this was also just to protect herself, which Zhou Tian knew. And killing is killing. With Lu Yanyan's qualifications, no one can sanction her, not to mention just killing one ordinary person. Even if it was 10 or 100, the school authorities would still do their best to protect Yanran Lu. Don't worry, leave it all to me, Zhou Tian comforted. Immediately after, Zhou Tian's gaze was placed on the only gambling stall owner who was still conscious. His cultivation level was only at the beginning of the first turn, and he was only one step weaker than Zhou Tian. However, no matter if it was the compulsion or the real battle power, it was far from Zhou Tian's opponent. Let's forget about today. Take your friends and get the hell out of here. And don't let me see you here again. Zhou Tian's eyes were defiant and his tone was filled with ice. Upon hearing Zhou Tian's words, the owner of the gambling stall, who was originally still very alarmed, instantly became furious at this moment. You devil! You killed my father and my brother, and you still want to let this matter go? Just wait, I'll contact the law enforcement team now, the owner of the gambling stand angrily rebuked. Although, at first, it was him who saw the wealth and wanted to forcefully take Zhou Tian's time and fortune compass. Originally, he only thought that Zhou Tian and Yanran Lu were just ordinary students, but I didn't expect to hit so hard. Although Zhou Tian had killed 2 of his friends, it was not a bad thing. Because of this, he also has a bottom line. Being able to directly contact the law enforcement team to imprison Zhou Tian and Yanran Lu for interrogation. But no matter what came out of the interrogation, Zhou Tian and Yanran Lu's murder had become a fact and could not escape punishment. And at that time, Zhou Tian's time and fortune compass would be returned to him. Oh, you want to contact the law enforcement team? Do you think the law enforcement team will deal with the 2 of us? Or with you? She and I are both 10 great talents. Who in the entire Dragon Kingdom could or would dare to move? Zhou Tian directly stated the identity of the 10 extinct bodies. The 10 extreme body is a true demonic genius. And when the owner of the gambling stall heard Zhou Tian say the identity of the 10 extinct bodies, the entire person completely froze. He often hung out in the neighborhood, so how could he not know that there were 2 10 extreme body geniuses in the school? Coupled with this matter of Zhou Tian exchanging the Hongyan Chi Tian compass for the spring and autumn cicada, it caused the entire internet to boil. The school, on the other hand, would absolutely preserve Zhou Tian and Yanran Lu to the best of its ability. And the gambling stall owner once again looked towards Zhou Tian and Yanran Lu. This time this came back to him. These 2 people really seem to be those 2 10 extreme body geniuses from the news. How is it possible? How is my luck so unlucky? Surprisingly, I've encountered 2 10 extreme body geniuses. The owner of the gambling stall was completely desperate. Strength is honored in this world. And 2 geniuses of the 10 extreme body were simply not something they could deal with. Don't look at the fact that Zhou Tian and Yanran Lu were only at the first turn cultivation level right now. But they could always join those even bigger family powers if they wanted to. And with the help of those organizations, they would be able to kill the gambling stall owner easily. Although they were compass masters, they were the weakest first turn compass masters, without any background at all. Seeing the expression on the gambling stall owner's face, the corner of Zhou Tian's mouth curled slightly before he directly threw 4 half-yuan stones towards him. These yuan stones, consider this as compensation for the lives of your 2 friends. Let's go, Zhou Tian said icily. Immediately after that, he directly led Yanran Lu away. Only the owner of the gambling stall was left behind, looking at the 4 half-dollar stones in a mute manner. 4.5 yuan stones. 4.5 yuan stones for the lives of my 2 friends. Not to mention the loss of the fortune of time compass. The owner of the gambling stall muttered, but it was too late. With his ability, he could not fight Zhou Tian and Yanran Lu. Even if he contacted the law enforcement team, it would be impossible to fix blame on Zhou Tian and Yanran Lu. People have a school background behind them. 2 geniuses who were Jedi qualified. How could the school watch them being victimized? And just at this time, a man slowly walked towards the gambling stall owner. I think that we can cooperate and deal with this Zhou Tian together. This person's voice was cold, but it was laced with a murderous intent. Ha! Hearing this person's voice, the owner of the gambling stall immediately froze. When she turned her head to look at the man, the surprise on her face became even more pronounced, because this person was a teenager who was the same as Zhou Tian. This person was none other than Li Erlong. Li Erlong didn't explain anything, but handed him a compulsion formula. This is a second turn compulsion, the love farewell compulsion. You should have a wife, right? It's just right to refine this compulsion. You, who are you? The owner of the gambling stall looked at Li Erlong and said with heavy eyes, how could he not know what this compulsion does when he turns 2 and loves to leave? It needs to be refined with the heart of a lover, and is the strongest poisonous Tao compulsion of the second turn. If it could be used properly, it could even kill a third turn compassion master. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that I can give you a chance for revenge, Li Erlong said slowly and left directly afterward. The rest of the day passed uneventfully. Zhou Tian moved into the school dormitory and slept in class in the morning and spent the rest of the day cultivating. And besides cultivation, Zhou Tian was constantly flowing between the two girls, Yanran Lu and Lin Qingyue. After attaining the time luck compass, Zhou Tian did not use it immediately. The effect of the time and fortune compass was extremely domineering, able to anticipate the future's fortune and add it to the present. Although the time and fortune compass is a fortune compass, it feeds on qi, which means that as long as I refine it, my luck will continue to decrease. Looking at the time and fortune compass in his hand, Zhou Tian revealed a bitter smile. Compasses have a myriad of abilities, but there is never a perfect one. There are pros, and naturally there are cons. However, this was Zhou Tian's only fortune compass, so naturally, he could not give it up either. However, Zhou Tian felt that he could only use it once at most, and that time was when Zhou Tian used the spring and autumn cicada. 5 days later, the day of the assessment finally arrived. All of the students jumped at the chance to try it, and there were looks of excitement on their faces. It was the day they tested the results of their cultivation, and if they could achieve a good ranking, they could also receive rewards from the school. Zhou Tian slowly opened his eyes, and a mouthful of turbid air was exhaled from his mouth. Finally stepping into the peak of the first turn, Zhou Tian felt the dark green true essence in his body and let out a long breath. Chapter 19, The Start of the Examination. After spending a week, Zhou Tian finally stepped into the peak of the first turn. Such speed is far beyond the norm. At this point in time, most of the other students were still trying to sprint through the first turn middle rank. A small number of those with excellent natural talent might just break through to the middle stage. But what about Zhou Tian? He had directly stepped into the peak first turn cultivation level. Even if Zhou Tian was given some more time, Zhou Tian would be able to break through to the second stage. This was the overbearing nature of the ancient Munin desolate body. Cultivating it was as simple as drinking water. But all the same, Zhou Tian felt a sense of crisis. The content of true essence in his body was getting higher and higher, and had even broken through 10%, reaching one point in 10%. If nothing goes wrong, by the time I step into the peak of the second turn, or the third turn, the empty orifices will completely explode with no support. The 10 extinct body's self-detonation is probably capable of destroying dozens of miles in a circle, right? As Zhou Tian thought about it, he couldn't help but have a hint of bad taste in his heart. When Bai Ningbing was at the peak of her third turn, she turned the entire Changmao mountain into 1,000 miles of ice. And how wonderful would Zhou Tian's ancient Munin desolate body bring about if it blew itself up? Right. Today is the day of the test. I wonder what kind of opponent I'll be matched with. Zhou Tian thought and immediately got up and walked out of the dormitory. Zhou Tian had a total of 3 roommates. At the moment they all ran to the playground. None of them waited for Zhou Tian. There's also a very funny thing to say about it. All 3 of Zhou Tian's uses were all of D-grade qualifications. When Zhou Tian moved into the dormitory on the first day, he didn't try to bully them, but they were so good that they had united to try to isolate Zhou Tian. He was even ashamed of Zhou Tian, feeling that it was embarrassing to walk with him. Zhou Tian was very understanding of this behavior of theirs. It's the weak, after all, who like to report for warmth. Zhou Tian walked out of the dormitory and headed towards the playground. At the moment the playground was densely packed with students. Not only the students who had awakened their parasites, even the ordinary students had all come to join in the fun. And at the very front podium was a huge screen. The assessment is based on a randomized matching mechanism, with winners advancing and losers eliminated. In the end, the strongest first place will be chosen. Before Zhou Tian could get close, he heard babbling discussions. Asterisk 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 asterisk. I'm only C qualified, and I'm fighting A qualified Liao Yin in the first match. Isn't this playing with me? Hey, I'm a bit more fortunate. The one I'm fighting against is a girl who still has an awakened healing compulsion. Envious. Although I have a C-grade qualification and my awakened compulsion is also a third turn. The first match against me was actually Yanran Lu, laughing me to death. People Lu Yan is supported by the school, a set of ice compulsion, and also the 10 Jedi body. You're just waiting to die. Ooh, if I call my mom, will Yanran Lu let me go? Listening to the chatter in his ears, the corner of Zhou Tian's mouth curled up slightly. Also looking forward to what kind of opponent he would encounter. Zhou Tian's eyes went to the big screen and immediately found himself in the dense array of names. Zhou Tian vs Jiang Shangbai, Kong Sangbak? Zhou Tian remembered this person. A genius with C-grade qualifications. And the compulsion that was awakened was also unusual, being a third-turn ghost scissors compulsion. The the ghost scissors compulsion, which could briefly transform itself into a stern ghost and could manipulate a pair of ghost scissors, was considered an extremely powerful compulsion. But there was a price. If one used the ghost scissors compulsion for a long time, one would completely transform into a stern ghost. When Zhou Tian had once looked for Jiang Shangbai to borrow Yuanshi, he had wasted a lot of effort. It was only because Jiang Shangbai was greatly immune to physical attacks after becoming in the state of a liege. Zhou Tian could only consume his true essence first and then finally use force to subdue him. Zhou Tian, you wait for death. Jiang Shangbai is a first-turn middle-ranked powerhouse. Ha ha, I didn't expect Zhou Tian to be so unlucky as to encounter Jiang Shangbai in the first match. Right. Zhou Tian only has a time-stop compass on his body and no other attacking compasses, so how could he be a match for Jiang Shangbai? And today, Jiang Shangbai also refined the Yin Qi compass, and the power of the ghost scissors became even more terrifying. The crowd also noticed Zhou Tian's appearance and immediately spoke out in mockery. They had been bullied enough by Zhou Tian these days, and now, finally, someone would be able to teach Zhou Tian a lesson. Oh, Yin Qi compulsion? The corner of Zhou Tian's mouth curled up slightly. He already had a Yang Qi compass now, but he was in great need of a Yin Qi compass. Yin Qi compasses and Yang Qi compasses aren't very valuable, and their uses aren't exactly widespread. But the more this happens, the more scarce these two parasites become. Zhou Tian was originally wondering where to go to get it, but he didn't expect that the Yin Qi compass would come to his doorstep of its own accord now. Has this Zhou Tian been scared silly? Ha ha, definitely. Don't look at him as a 10 extremities body. But a 10 extremities body is only strong in terms of cultivation speed. What's the use of the rest? Right. And the higher the cultivation level, the easier it will be for Zhou Tian to blow himself up. So I guess Zhou Tian doesn't dare to cultivate at all now. I've already bought melon popcorn. Looking forward to the moment when Zhou Tian is knocked out. Listening to the voices around him, Zhou Tian did not say anything. Instead, he burst into a cold laugh. Zhou Tian, what are you laughing at? Someone asked immediately. Of course I'm laughing at you guys for being too naive. Just a mere Jiang Shangbai is worthy of being my opponent? I'm looking forward to my next encounter with him, Zhou Tian said again. Hearing Zhou Tian's words, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cool air. Jiang Shangbai, although not the most qualified in the school, was at the top when it came to true combat prowess. More importantly, Jiang Shangbai's background was even more terrifying. The Jiang family, in the entire Jianghai city, was an extremely large force. After saying these words, Zhou Tian immediately walked towards Ring B. Several rings were set up in the playground beforehand. Now that there was still half an hour before the sparring match, Zhou Tian decided to just wait for Jiang Shangbai's arrival. Zhou Tian. Just as he arrived at the ring, Zhou Tian heard a petulant voice. Zhou Tian turned his head and immediately saw Yan Ranlu's figure. What brings you here? Seeing Yan Ranlu's appearance, Zhou Tian also acted a little surprised. Yan Ranlu was also one of the first to participate in the examination, and was in Ring A. Of course it's here to find you, which Jiang Shangbai is very strong. You have to be careful. Lu Yanyan smiled, revealing two small tiger teeth. Her two slender lotus root arms were placed behind her, and she seemed to be holding something in her hand. Well, I should be able to handle it though. Can't lose in the first round. Zhou Tian nodded and calmly said, that's right, go for it. By the way Zhou Tian, this is the blade light compass that I asked the school to give me, and you don't have any attacking type of compulsion, so refine this one. Don't reject me. If you do, I'll never speak to you again. Yan Ranlu revealed a wry smile, her delicate voice carrying an air of threat. But in the face of such a threat, I guess no one would refuse, right? Chapter 20, Jiang Shangbai, Ghost Scissors Compulsion. Blade Light Compulsion? Zhou Tian looked at the parasite. Although the Blade Light Compass was only 3 turns, it was an extremely powerful one. On par with the Sword Shadow Compass, it was known as the strongest attacking compulsion of the 3rd turn. Then in that case, I'll take it. Zhou Tian thought about it and didn't refuse. This was because Zhou Tian really didn't have an attacking type of compass yet. Although the Blade Light Compass belonged to the category of being a light Dao compass, it was not able to utilize the enchantment of the Zhou Tian Ancient Moon in Desolate Body. But this was also Lu Yanyan's intention, and it would be too inappropriate for Zhou Tian to refuse at this time. Some people's personalities are not like that. They are afraid that they will be indebted to others, and they are even more flattered by the gifts of others. But really, favors are owed to each other. No one owes anyone anything, and relationships don't last that way. What's more, Zhou Tian thought that he would be able to repay Yan Ranlu's gift in the future, and would even double it. Zhou Tian, you have to cheer up. Time is almost up. I'm going to take the test too. Seeing that Zhou Tian had accepted the Blade Light Compass, Yan Ranlu's face also revealed joy. Good. It didn't take long for Jiang Shangbai to also rush over. and he was surrounded by quite a few people. Brother Bai, you must avenge us. This time we must make Zhou Tian pay. Yes, this Zhou Tian is so hateful. He's robbed me of a dozen yuan stones these days. Brother Bai, if you can defeat Zhou Tian, I'll accompany you out on a date today. One of the women gave up her pant leg, and underneath the jeans were calves wrapped in black silk. Seeing this scene, Zhang Shangbai's eyes instantly straightened. Panty lining. It's a panty liner. What man could resist such a temptation? Don't worry, I couldn't defeat Zhou Tian before, but I don't believe I can't defeat him this time, Zhang Shangbai said with a big smile. While saying that, Zhang Shangbai also directly wrapped around the girl's thin waist, one hand like a swimming dragon in the other side of the belly wandering. With Zhou Tian's words, this sister next to him was smiling even more brightly, not stopping Zhang Shangbai's behavior at all. Zhang Shangbai had a smug expression on his face, but before he could continue enjoying himself, he saw Zhou Tian in front of him. Zhou Tian, I didn't expect you to arrive so early. Are you impatiently waiting to be abused by me? Seeing Zhou Tian, Zhang Shangbai immediately spoke out in mockery. Oh, how come you weren't cocky when I stomped on the ground before? Zhou Tian coldly disliked him back. You, Kang Sangbai cracks the defense in an instant, especially since there was now a sister next to him. How could Zhang Shangbai allow Zhou Tian to humiliate himself? Zhou Tian, cut the crap. Let's go on stage. I can't wait to defeat you. Zhang Shangbai's eyes were filled with killing intent. If eyes could kill, then Zhou Tian didn't know how many times he had died. Unfortunately, eyes can't kill. Okay, I'll serve. Although the time had not yet arrived, since both Zhou Tian and Zhang Shangbai had agreed, the examination had officially begun. Both of you, let me talk about the rules. The main purpose of our test this time is to test your strength, to meet friends with martial arts, and not to injure each other in as many cases as possible, a teacher next to him said, but her words were scoffed at by all. In a confrontation between parasites, there is no victory or defeat, only life and death. Since you're all ready, then the examination officially begins, the teacher said again. There were quite a few people gathered around the ring, most of them cheering for Zhang Shangbai. This made Zhang Shangbai's temper very high, thinking that he could definitely take this victory. Some of the underclassmen wondered why this was happening and couldn't help but ask questions. Hey, why do the others hate Zhou Tian so much? Is it because he did something hurtful? You don't know yet, right? This Zhou Tian is every day after school, he robbed other students' yuan stones, has been robbing for 7 days in a row. So it's like this, then this Zhou Tian is really Zhang Shangbai. Go ahead and beat this to death. The ring. Zhang Shangbai looked at Zhou Tian with cold eyes, his face arrogant and domineering. Zhou Tian, I've already refined the second transformation in Chi Compass. There's absolutely no way you can be my opponent, but I can give you a chance. How about if you kneel on the ground right now and apologize to me, as well as to everyone else? I'll be merciful? Zhang Shangbai said with great contempt. What a lot of crap. Zhou Tian let out a cold snort, then grasped his hands in the void, and 2 long knives immediately appeared in his hands. The 2 long knives were constantly alternating between illusory and real, especially under the sunlight, making them seem even more elusive. It's a lightsaber compulsion. Zhou Tian held his sword in both hands, his eyes revealing a hint of grimness as he quickly attacked towards Zhang Shangbai, and with a cold snort, Zhang Shangbai also immediately urged his true essence to be injected into the ghost scissors compass. Shasta. A cold, evil pattern emerged from Zhang Shangbai's body, emitting a forbidding and unsettling aura. The temperature of the living person in his body continued to decrease, and he gradually lost the aura of a living person, instead becoming a terrifyingly severe ghost. And just then, a huge pair of scissors suddenly appeared in Zhang Shangbai's hand, which was filled with dried blood and even some unknown hairs. Horror. Unknown. The eerie aura instantly enveloped the surroundings. Asterisk. Zhang Shangbai's strength is too strong. I really doubt that he has really become a severe ghost now. Yes, even if Zhang Shangbai was a top-notch powerhouse before, now with the addition of the Yin Chi compass, his strength is definitely even more terrifying. TSK. Zhou Tian is really hanging by a thread this time, absolutely incapable of any resistance. Yes, his time-stop compulsion is indeed powerful, but Zhang Shangbai is immune to physical damage. The surrounding students were talking, and the atmosphere at the moment was at its highest point. Zhou Tian's dual swords and Zhang Shangbai's ghost scissors collided, and the moment they made contact, Zhou Tian's twin swords seemed to be contaminated as if they had been contaminated, constantly emitting a burst of black gas. My blade light compass can even be corrupted by your ghost scissors. Zhou Tian was slightly surprised. With each attack, Zhou Tian's blade light compass would be corrupted by the opponent's ghost scissors. Once or twice was fine, but if it was too many times, then his blade light compass would also be directly wasted. Ha ha, Zhou Tian, die for me. The smirk on Jiang Shangbai's face became even more intense, as if he had already seen Zhou Tian's death. He picked up the ghost scissors with both of his hands and directly cut down towards Zhou Tian's body. If there were no surprises, Zhou Tian's body would be directly chopped into two. And also because of the ghost scissors breath, his body will not be able to heal. Everyone was holding their breath. Even breathing became a luxury at this moment. Some of the girls were afraid to look at the bloody scene, but they were looking forward to it. Zhou Tian, will he die? Chapter 21, I am the peak of the first turn. Who can kill me? Who dares to kill me? Looking at Jiang Shangbai, who was urging the ghost scissors to attack towards him, Zhou Tian's face was unperturbed. What there is just indifference to the extreme of ruthlessness. Time-stopping compulsion. Zhou Tian mobilized the true essence in his body and urged a compulsion once again. It's the time-stopping compulsion again. But I'm in the body of a stern ghost now, so you can't hurt me at all. So what if you're a 10 extinct body? As long as I'm willing, I can maintain my night ghost state for up to an hour. Feeling the changes in his body, Jiang Shangbai didn't have any panic. Instead he coldly mocked with his eyes. The time around them was completely frozen at this moment. However, Jiang Shangbai's ghost scissors compass was a third-turn compass. Although in itself, Jiang Shangbai was still only a first-turn compass master. However, at this moment, he was immune to the effects of the time-stopping compulsion to a great extent. And if Zhou Tian wanted to slow down Jiang Shangbai's flow of time, he had to push more of his true essence, which aggravated Zhou Tian's true essence consumption even more. The corner of Zhou Tian's mouth curled up slightly with contempt on his face as he dealt with Jiang Shangbai, relying on more than just the time-stop compass. Who said, I can't hurt you? The words are gone. Zhou Tian once again urged another compulsion. This compulsion, the name is Yang Qi compulsion. The Yang Qi compass was different from other compasses in that it could passively raise the Yang Qi in Zhou Tian's body. And at this moment, Zhou Tian took the initiative to urge the Yang Qi compass. And from the compass, a powerful compulsion immediately surged up and tilted towards Zhou Tian's body. Yang energy, like luck, is something nebulous. However, Zhou Tian knew very well that as long as his own Yang Qi was sufficient, he could achieve the effect of killing evil. And with the Yang Qi, Zhou Tian would be able to ignore Jiang Shangbai's stern body and give damage to his opponent. Damn, how did you get a Yang Qi compass? Feeling the Yang Qi on Zhou Tian's body, Jiang Shangbai completely froze. Yang Qi compulsion was likewise an extremely rare compulsion. How could he not have imagined that Zhou Tian could also possess it? Why aren't you arrogant now? The corner of Zhou Tian's mouth curled up and he slapped Jiang Shangbai's face. Jiang Shangbai only felt a rolling heat on his face, as if he had been splashed with sulfuric acid. Emitting a green smoke, Zhou Tian's Yang Qi compass was only one turn. However, Zhou Tian's true essence was sufficient, and the overloaded state of urging the compulsion was able to cause great damage to Jiang Shangbai. Without any hesitation, Zhou Tian continued to violently beat up the Jiang Shangbai in front of him. Damn Zhou Tian! What kind of compulsion is this of his, that he could directly injure Jiang Shangbai's body of a stern ghost? I see. This is a Yang Qi compulsion. But how can this damn Zhou Tian have Yang Qi compulsion? Hiss, this Jiang Shangbai is really too unlucky. Being a body of a stern ghost himself, he is most afraid of something as supremely masculine as Yang Qi. Damn it! Jiang Shangbai, stand up quickly. You're our hope to get out of Zhou Tian's clutches. Stand up! Stand up! The rest of the students immediately encouraged Kong Sang-bek. At the moment, Jiang Shangbai felt a great deal of pain all over his body, as if he had been crushed by a large truck. Damn it! Jiang Shangbai gritted his teeth. He tried to resist, but the effect of the time-stop compass was simply too counterintuitive. The flow of time around Jiang Shangbai slowed down, and Zhou Tian had no effect. This also led to the fact that Jiang Shangbai's movements were as if they were in slow motion in Zhou Tian's eyes. I have to say, you're getting more resistant to a beating now. Zhou Tian sneered with cold eyes. Despite the Yang Qi compass, this Jiang Shangbai was also really thick-skinned. Zhou Tian had wasted a lot of effort, but he still hadn't managed to make Jiang Shangbai completely lose his power of resistance. Kong Sangbai braced himself and tried to lift his head, but he then welcomed a kick from Zhou Tian. Poof! The entire ring trembled slightly under Zhou Tian's power. Being kicked down by Zhou Tian like this, Jiang Shangbai only felt that his brain went blank, and that the heavens and earth were spinning at this moment. Kong Sangbai struggled and tried to get up again, but Zhou Tian kicked again. Admit defeat, or die, Zhou Tian said in a cold voice. I won't admit defeat. Jiang Shangbai gritted his teeth and tried to struggle to get up again, but what was ushered in was another kick from Zhou Tian. This time, Jiang Shangbai completely lost his ability to resist, and he went limp on the ground like a dead fish. Is it hard to believe that I'm going to be like a dead dog and lose under Zhou Tian? Jiang Shangbai despaired inwardly. At this time, Kang Sangbai suddenly saw the sister. The girl clenched her pink fists, pursed her lips, and looked at Jiang Shangbai in a very sulky manner. Brother Jiang Shangbai, stand up quickly, defeat this bad man Zhou Tian. The sister's voice reached Jiang Shangbai's ears. It once again filled him with the will to fight. And it was at this time, Zhou Tian's time-stopping compulsion effect stopped. The flow of time around him returned to normal. It's a pity, after all, it's only a one-turn time-stopping compulsion. So I guess it's going to be damaged if I use it again. Zhou Tian sighed helplessly. Hearing Zhou Tian's words, Jiang Shangbai immediately gave birth to hope. This is my good chance. Without the time-stop compass, Zhou Tian is definitely no match for me. Ah! Jiang Shangbai urged the last of his true essence and directly erupted a terrifyingly stern aura. Zhou Tian, I'm going to kill you. Jiang Shangbai was completely insane at this moment, as if he had truly become a severe ghost. Jiang Shangbai, stop it, using the ghost scissors compass so violently. You'll become a severe ghost completely. The teacher in charge of invigilating the exam, immediately discouraged. But at this time, where would Jiang Shangbai pay any attention to her words, urging the ghost scissors to attack directly towards Zhou Tian. Seek death. Zhou Tian snorted coldly. Even without the time-stopping compulsion, Jiang Shangbai was absolutely no match for himself. Zhou Tian's mind moved and directly urged the two parasites, respectively, the knife light compulsion, the yang qi compulsion. The two compotes were jointly catalyzed, which would greatly consume the mind of the compounder. If you are not careful, you will suffer a backlash. However, Zhou Tian, at this moment, his colleague was urging the two parasites, and surprisingly, it seemed extremely easy. This Zhou Tian actually activated two parasites at the same time. Is he crazy? And there's also a third turn compass. Is this Zhou Tian a human being or not? To even be able to do this. Crazy, just crazy. And it was at this time, the combination of the two powers of Zhou Tian's yang qi compass and the blade light compass occurred, unexpectedly erupting into an even more terrifying power. This is a killing move. By combining different parasites with each other, a more powerful force could be exploded. It was only Zhou Tian's first time trying to use a killing move. Whether it would work or not, as well as whether he could block Jiang Shangbai's attack, it's still an unknown moment. Jiang Shangbai's yin qi collided with Zhou Tian's yang qi. Jab. At this moment, it was as if space was rippling because of the power of the two people, and the intense energy made everyone unable to open their eyes. Ah, my eyes. This pressure is just too powerful. Is this a battle between top powerhouses? A first-turn middle-ranked powerhouse is truly as terrifying as this. No, it's not right. Zhou Tian's aura isn't a mid-first turn. He stepped into the peak of the first turn. How is it possible? Even the 10 extreme body can't be this domineering. In the midst of the crowd's chatter, the ring fell into a calm. As the smoke cleared, the crowd got a good look at the scene in the ring. In the ring at this moment, Jiang Shangbai was lying on the ground like a dead dog. His breath withered. And next to him was Zhou Tian, whose body was thoroughly bathed in blood. However, even though his entire body was covered in blood, Zhou Tian's eyes did not show any panic and remained extremely cold and arrogant. I am the peak of the first turn. Who dares to kill me? Who can kill me?